Hey, everybody, and welcome, welcome. I hope this finds you well. I forgot to add the intro. I know I created a new intro. Yay! Well, this is an unusual night. We are here on Saturday night because we're going to play catch up of the San Antonio trial of the three police officers that are being charged, two of murder, one of use of a deadly weapon. It's going to be interesting. We have three defendants at the same time. Let's see if we can keep up with the drama of trial. Welcome to the Ada K Show. I'm your host, Ada K, and I am a criminal justice major. I am also a deaf courtroom commentator, breaking down the gripping courtroom drama while providing full ASL interpretation, making justice accessible to everyone. Grab a cup of Java and let's dive in. And don't forget, comment, like, and subscribe. And if you love this channel, please become a member. Yes, please become a member. We really love having our members, and we do have some special member benefits. So we are going to be diving into this trial along with the Ellis and along with the Daisy Link. But this one touches close to home, and that's because it is close to home for me. It's in San Antonio, Texas. I live in Kerrville, Texas. Yes, I know, where the 4th of July floods happened. And we're still trying to recover from that. Thank y'all for your prayers and support. But this trial is just down the road for me. And depending on how the other trials go, and if I can convince my mods to run a stream for me while I'm gone, I may go to that trial and sit in one day and then during breaks come out and do, live broadcasting from outside the courtroom. We'll wait and see how this week goes. This week, this trial is supposed to last a few weeks. So let's get ready to hop on in because we got a lot to catch up on. Now, I'm going to get my notepad out because this is going to be a lot to keep up. We're going to have 3 opening statements, one from each of the defendant, and we're going to have the 4th, which is going to be your state. It is going to be a busy one. My mom said, it'll be hard to convince me to help you. Yeah, I didn't think it would. The 3 people below are the ones who were on trial, and so we're just going to kind of hop in and get.
Also, a cautionary notice.
By the way, the sound will get better.
Some type, since media coverage is also going to be streaming it, that could also run afoul of the rule with witnesses as well.
All right, so the rules are invoked. I'll instruct all parties to make sure that the witnesses have an understanding as to what that means and that they comply thereof, including observing any witness testimony or hearing about witness testimony through any media coverage. All right, and that starts now. So that sort of makes me think of this. Let me make sure that y'all understand the order of trial, and this is how it works. So the state is going to read the charge. We have 3 named accused individuals in this courtroom. After they read each particular charge, the indictments, remember, indictments are not evidence in this case for you to consider. They're just the formal charge. Once they read those charges, each particular accused will have an opportunity to plead to that. Once that is concluded, each side will have an opportunity to present opening statements. Sometimes the defense provides an opening statement. Sometimes they wait till later to give that to you. Sometimes they waive that opening statement. Remember that the defense does not have a burden in this case. They're not required to do anything. Once opening statements are completed, if there's any, then the state will begin calling its witnesses. We call that the state's case in chief. Each witness will come to this witness stand. They'll take an oath. They'll testify under examination by the state. Once the state is concluded, each of the 3 named accused individuals has an opportunity to cross-examine those particular witnesses. We're basically handling 3 cases in one in this trial, as there are 3 named defendants. Once the defense, if they choose to cross-examine any of those witnesses, then they will pass that over. That will continue until the state has concluded all its witnesses, and then they will rest their case. At that point, the defense, if they choose to, can call witnesses, and if they do, they'll examine those witnesses. Subsequent to those examinations, the state has an opportunity to cross-examine each one of those witnesses. Once the defense, if they have any witnesses, have concluded calling their witnesses, then they will rest. At that time, each side has an opportunity to present additional witnesses for rebuttal purposes, if they choose to do so. Subsequent to that, I'm going to read you all the law that you need through the charge of the court. Each side will give you a closing argument. Then I will instruct you to begin your deliberations. All right? With that state, are you ready to read the indictments?
We are, Your Honor. May I have one?
Yes.
Good copy. If you don't have one, I can get it.
Yes.
This indictment is entitled "The State of Texas vs. Alfred Flores." It reads as follows. True bill of indictment. In the name and by authority of the State of Texas, the Grand Jury of Bexar County, State of Texas, duly organized and paneled and sworn as such, at the November term AD 2023 of the 379th Judicial District Court of said county and said court at said term, do present and into said court, the county and state aforesaid, and anterior to the presentment of this indictment, that on or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Alfred Flores, hereinafter referred to as defendant, with intent to cause serious bodily injury to an individual, namely Melissa Ann Perez, did commit an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death of Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting the complainant with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm. The next count. On or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Alfred Flores, hereinafter referred to, or hereinafter called defendant, did intentionally or knowingly cause the death of Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting the complainant with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm. The next count. On or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Alfred Flores, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did use and exhibit a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, and defendant did intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly cause bodily injury to Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting the complainant with said deadly weapon, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. Next count. On or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Alfred Flores did intentionally and knowingly and recklessly cause bodily injury to another, namely Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting a projectile at and in the direction of the complainant, thereby causing serious bodily injury to the complainant, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. On or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Alfred Flores, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did use and exhibit a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, and defendant did intentionally and knowingly threaten imminent bodily injury to Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting at or in the direction of the complainant with the said deadly weapon, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. Next count. On or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Alfred Flores, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did knowingly discharge a firearm at and in the direction of an individual, namely Melissa Ann Perez, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under the color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. It's signed against the peace and dignity of the state by the foreman of the grand jury.
To each count, sir, how do you plead?
To all counts, Judge?
Not guilty.
All right, you may have a seat.
This indictment is titled "The State of Texas versus Alejandro." Reads as follows. True bill of indictment. In the name and by authority of the State of Texas, the Grand Jury of Bexar County, State of Texas, duly organized and paneled and sworn as such at the November term AD 2023 of the 379th Judicial District Court of said county and said court at said term, do present in and to said court that in the county and state aforesaid and anterior to the presentment of this indictment, that on or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Alejandro, hereinafter called defendant, with intent to cause serious bodily injury to an individual, namely Melissa Ann Perez, did commit an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death of Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting the complainant with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm. And on or about the 23rd day of June, 2023, Alejandro, hereinafter called defendant, did intentionally or knowingly cause the death of Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting the complainant with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm. On or about the 23rd day of June, 2023, Alejandro, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did use and exhibit a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, and defendant did intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly cause bodily injury to Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting the complainant with said deadly weapon. And the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. Next, on or about the 23rd day of June, 2023, Alejandro did intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly cause bodily injury to another, namely Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting a projectile at and in the direction of the complainant, thereby causing serious bodily injury to the complainant, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. Goes on to state, on or about the 23rd day of June, 2023, Alejandro, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did use and exhibit a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, and the defendant did intentionally and knowingly threaten imminent bodily injury to Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting at and in the direction of the complainant with said deadly weapon, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. Final part. On or about the 23rd day of June, 2023, Alejandro, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did knowingly discharge a firearm at and in the direction of an individual, namely Melissa Ann Perez, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. Signed against the peace and dignity of the state, signed by the foreman of the grand jury.
On each count, sir, how do you plead?
On all counts, not guilty.
You may have a seat.
This next indictment is titled State of Texas versus Nathaniel Villalobos. It reads as follows. True bill of indictment. In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury of Bexar County, state of Texas, duly organized and paneled and sworn as such at the November term AD 2023 of the 379th Judicial District Court of said county in said court at said term, do present and into said court that in the county and state aforesaid and anterior to the presentment of this indictment, first count, on or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Nathaniel Villalobos, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did use and exhibit a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, and defendant did intentionally and knowingly threaten imminent bodily injury to Melissa Ann Perez, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting at and in the direction of the complainant with said deadly weapon, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer. Next count. On or about the 23rd day of June 2023, Nathaniel Villalobos, hereinafter referred to as defendant, did knowingly discharge a firearm at and in the direction of an individual, namely Melissa Ann Perez, and the defendant was then and there a public servant acting under color of his employment, namely a San Antonio police officer, signed against the peace and the dignity of the state, signed by the foreman of the grand jury.
To each count, sir, how do you plead?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, I am not guilty of all counts.
All right. State, are you ready to begin your opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we take the next step in a journey that we all started yesterday couple hours before this time with 90 other of your ex-best friends. In this stage, I'm going to tell you about the events that occurred in our city. They started Thursday night, June 22nd, 2023, at Rosemont Apartments. Now those apartments, some of you may be familiar with them. They sit and structured in the South Patrol sector, the way SAPD has the city broken down. And I expect over the course of this trial, you're going to hear that at about 12:33, Thursday the 22nd, SAPD got 1 or 2 911 calls. There had been a disturbance at the Rosemont Apartments. The fire alarms were going off. There had been some damage. Somebody had cut them. SAPD officers responded. Before then, SA Fire got there. I forget the engine number, but I know the captain in charge, you'll hear from him, then Lieutenant Chris Hudson. And the fire team, they took effort to reduce the noise abatement and turned off. And they also met a person you're going to hear about. They met Miss Melissa Ann Perez at their apartment. She lived there. They lived in apartment 202. They talked to her from the time they arrived up until the first SAPD officer arrived. And I suspect you'll learn that this was SAP Officer Jesus Rojas. He arrived on scene about, I think, 12:49 p.m. By the time Officer Rojas got there, the fire department had ceased the noise. They cut the power. And Officer Rojas also engaged with Ms. Perez. As he talked to her, he listened. He's had training. He knows what answers cue some things. And he asked her, hey, could you come over to my unit? We want to talk to you more. Miss Perez asked him, you'll hear, you going to arrest me? He said, no. And she stood there. She had a little dog. And while she's waiting for Officer Rojas to get himself together to ask the question she wanted, another officer, an Officer Ramos, comes up and approaches the two of them. It's normal procedure. Every officer always has backup. And Miss Perez, seeing that, knowing the state, she decided to go back to her apartment. You'll hear and learn that she got into her apartment, and yes, the officers were pursuing, at before 1 a.m. on now Friday, June 23rd. Over the next 15 to 20 minutes, Officer Rojas went back to do his research. Officer Ramos stayed at her door. And you'll hear he kicked at the door, banged at the door, come out at the door, come out at the door, come out at the door, banging at the door, kicking at the door, banging at the door. For all those 20 minutes. Eventually, he's rejoined by Officer Rojas, and they were joined by a third officer, Officer Jonathan Salinas, and I believe you will hear from him today. Now, Officer Salinas, he was the senior officer of Sector 34 within the South Patrol District, which is where the Rosemont Apartments were. And it was normal in his protocol, Officer Salinas Since it occurred in his sector, he took control of the situation from Rojas and Ramos, and they became his backup. And over the next 15 minutes, after Salinas arrived, the officers continued to talk. The way the apartment is set up, you approach it from the cul-de-sac in the grass, and you run down this alleyway to the door to the apartment. But that front living room, you walk past it, there's a wall between you and the alleyway. If you've lived in apartments, you can kind of understand it. And in the front, right about out here, in the open area, there's a little patio, fenced off. And the front living room is visible from that patio area. And again, this is June 23rd in San Antonio. Even at midnight, it's kind of warm. So Ms. Perez, she had her windows open, screens open, lights on, and yes. And eventually she sat on her living room couch, and the officers could see her, and they engaged. Melissa, come out. You'll hear, and the evidence will show. She said, nope. Come out. Nope. Officer Rojas, expect he will hear you. He suspected that he needed to ED Ms. Perez, or write it up as a suspect report. Officer Salinas, when he got over and he took over, he went and tried to call in and research. Is cut fire alarms, is that an arson thing? How do we handle this? Needing guidance. You'll hear that at approximately 1:33, Officer Salinas, the officer in charge, comes back and he tells his other two officers, we're done. We're just going to write it up. If she comes out, arrest her. But we're going to write it up. Salinas goes to his unit, checks for guidance from higher downtown. You'll hear from a detective, Michael Thornton, who was the detective at night CID on duty that night, took a call from Salinas. And you'll learn that at that stage, 48 minutes after Miss Perez had gone into her home, you were told, write it up. List her name, suspect report. We don't know the exact amount of damage. Get back in service. And ultimately, at approximately 1:22 a.m., 50 minutes after the initial encounter, that's exactly what Salinas came back to Ramos and Rojas and said, that's it, it's over. And all three officers turned off their body cam. Case was closed, going to be written up. Let's get back to work. And as they retreated back to their units, back to the parking lot, officers Salinas and Rojas, they encountered the maintenance man for the apartment complex. And with that, he gave them an estimate to the damage to the fire alarm. I suspect the evidence will show when Officer Salinas got that estimate and got that damage, he talked to his sergeant in charge that day. The sergeant that night for Sector 34 was then SAPD Sergeant Flores. That at approximately 1:36 a.m., Salinas spoke to the other two officers, and 1:36 was 64 minutes after the initial call, after they closed it out. So I talked to Sarge. We can go in. Go into that patio, go into that front screen. And they turn their body cams on, they go back. And first they patrolled around the apartments. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. You have the living room behind the patio. You have a guest bedroom. You have another guest bedroom. I suspect you'll learn that in the second guest bedroom, Ms. Perez had a set of bunk beds. And then finally, if you go around the corner, you get to the master bedroom here in the back. And the evidence will show that Officer Salinas himself, probably 66, 67 minutes after the call, he's flashing his light into the apartment. Melissa, let us in. She said, nope. He comes back, he talks to his fellow officers. Yeah, she's in bed. It's retreated. At about 1:40, they continued to ask Melissa, open up, come out, let us in. She said no. She says no. They go back and they kick on the door. Officer Salinas, he got real creative. He turned and hit the mule kick. I counted about 13 of them. And Ramos, he continued his front leg burst onto the door. I suspect you'll hear and you'll learn, and all these officers, and they are amongst anyone who wears the uniform to serve. They are amongst our city's finest. Young, vigorous, it's what you want in an officer. Believe you'll find and you'll hear that Melissa Perez was 50 years old, 5'1", 150 pounds. And in that state, after those 68 minutes, and again, Melissa's alternately sitting in the living room couch, looking out her bay window into that area. The officer's talking to her. She's saying nope. At one point, she drifts back into her room, and Officer Salinas jumps the rail, reaches into her window, tears the screen to reach in to try to unlock that door. And after all those kicks, in 68 minutes, 1 hour, 10 seconds, all the refusals to hear her, yes, Melissa Perez, she got up and she picked up an object, a hammer, resembles this, and she runs at the window of her apartment. Officer Salinas backs up, he retreats. And Melissa, after she hit the window screen, she knocked the frame off from the inside. She puts the hammer down because Officer Salinas had backed up and retreated. And she had one of those Jesus candles you see in HEB. And she threw it out the window, hit Officer Salinas on his elbow. You'll hear and learn that that creates what the police call an E-tone. Officer's been hit, officer is in need of assistance, and that goes out throughout the district. It's essential, it's needed. Anytime any officer is down, brother and sister officers, absolutely come rushing to the aid. You don't know what it is. That call went out at about 1:40, 68. You'll learn and you hear as officers are rushing to it that also Officer Salinas himself said, "I'm okay, slow it down, I'm all right. No emergency." And in the reaction, then Officers Villalobos and Officers Alejandro, they're part of the response. Ultimately, up to 15 uniformed patrol officers all responded. They're all standing around that open bay window. Multiples flashing light. You'll hear that 3 or 4 of them, Melissa had a guest. A homeless man, Santos Rios. You will hear that she gave him a place to lay his head. A bed. I suspect, I don't know, I can't prove it, she shared whatever she had with him. Officers were aware he was there. In fact, Officers Rojas, Ramos, they'd engaged him. "Hey, can you open the door? Can you let us in?" Over the course of time, once Sergeant Flores got there and he gets briefed from Officer Salinas, Officer Villalobos, he's an ex-Marine as I understand. And it doesn't surprise me because Marines lead from the front. He got his briefing, he moved to the front, he moved to the rail. "Can you talk to me?" Ms. Perez said no. He persisted. And he took it on himself. "I think I can get that door open again." And he jumps the rail. And he tries to reach in. And he has some success. And same time, see that reaching in, Melissa, yep, she picked that hammer up. And officers called off. And Officer Villalobos, he backed up, he retreated. You'll hear that the doors to the patio, the hinges are on the outside. I'm not a handyman myself, but that means that that door swings out into the patio. So Officer Villalobos put his right foot and his weight. I don't know, as he and I have passed each other these hearings, he appears to be about my height, 6'1", 6'2", good sturdy guy. And he held his foot there. So, "She ain't coming out. I'm good." Other officers are, "No, come on, get over here, get over here, get over here." I said, "I can get it, I can reach it." because he backed off, Melissa put that hammer down. In fact, the evidence will show that between Officer Villalobos, Officer Alejandro, because of the patrol officers, he was kind of senior. He was working his way up to SWAT. He had been a high performer, the kind that we want to reward. And he's calling Villalobos, get back, now, now, now. Officer Villalobos, yeah, he did, because he was a younger officer in service. And he jumped back over the rail, and I believe the evidence will show from recorded on his camera, he says, I don't give a damn about the hammer. I'm 6'2". I'm a hard charger. It doesn't concern me. I can handle it. While all this is going on,
Position of it only happens in front of them.
officers still
There's a dude.
surround, and some are catching up. Hey, I start vacation after this shift is over with. How have you been? Some concept, something called a plan is formed. You'll hear from an officer, Andrew Chernick. Officer Chernick is a 20-year cop. He's been a detective in other instances, but he was a patrol officer here. Because the plan was to repeat Officer Villalobos and Officer Salinas' attempts to go over the rail in front of Ms. Perez, who can see it coming, and try to unlock the front door. And this is about 78 minutes after the damage. And you'll hear from Officer Andrew Chernick, who comes up to Sergeant Flores, because once the senior officer gets on the scene, he's the man in charge. And Officer Chernick comes up to Sergeant Flores and says, Sarge, I think we're thinking about this wrong. She's sitting right there watching us coming through the front. I can go into the back. And while you're talking to her in the front, we can come in with less lethal tasers. But the supervisor in charge, nope, he rejected that. And ultimately, at 2:02 a.m., a plan was hatched together. Officer Villalobos' partner, and Officer Travis Thompson, you'll hear from him, and Officer Alejandro, to engage and talk to and keep Ms. Perez talking at the front window. Officer Villalobos and Sergeant Flores would also climb that rail and go right back to that same window and door to try to enter. You'll hear it's been twice. You reach into the apartment, Melissa reacts. You back up, she backs up. But they came in the third time. Only this time, officers responded to that pattern with deadly force. You'll hear that ultimately that door had not been unlocked, that they had to kick it in themselves to get in to start first aid. And ultimately, before 3 a.m., Melissa Perez was declared deceased. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is the gravamen of what the evidence is for the case that we bring here today. But I don't think that will be all you will come to learn. I suspect you also hear from a Daisy Nieto. She was whom someone that Melissa Perez referred to as my sister. You may learn that opening her home to a homeless man was not unusual for Ms. Perez. The reason she herself had that 3-bedroom was that she had 4 lights in her life. Her daughter Alexis, her sons Jaden and Aiden, and the brightest star, her youngest child Dylan. Those extra bedrooms were for them when they came. You'll learn that over time, I suspect you'll hear the negative evidence that there is no one that says Melissa Perez gave consent to enter her home. No one will say they had reason to believe Melissa Perez was destroying evidence. You'll hear that no one had reason to believe that Melissa Perez could escape out the back door of that apartment that did not exist when 15 of SAPD's finest are watching her and got eyes on her for 2 hours and 30 minutes. You'll also hear that none of those 15 officers thought that after 78, 2 hours and 30 minutes, no one thought about doing the constitutionally mandated thing of going to a neutral and detached magistrate and getting a warrant to breach Ms. Perez's home. It wasn't a consideration. You'll learn that this repeated pattern over and over and over again. Yes, SAPD, all police officers, their duty, their obligation is to protect us. We don't want them letting violent criminals flee. But you'll hear when again the officers on the ground think to write it up, maybe we need to EDIR, maybe we need to do something else. What you will not hear is a justification to not comply with Texas law, their training and policy. At the end of all the evidence, we expect you will have evidence of the who that did what shot and killed or shot at Melissa and Perez. To whom? Melissa and Perez. At apartment 202 of the Rosemont Apartments in the early morning hours of Friday, April 23rd, 2023, you will have the who that did what, to whom, when they did it, where they did it, how they did it. Such that at that time, Mr. Lunan, Mr. Escobar, and myself, we're going to respond right back here to the spot, and we're going to ask you for your verdict of guilty on each and every count of every indictment. Let's get started.
May I proceed, Judge?
Yes.
They had a right to go home to their families. They had a right to go home to their wives. They had a right to go home to their children. They had a right not to be a victim. They had a right not to have June 23rd, 2023 be the end of any of their watches. They had that right. And what I just heard in that opening statement, I won't have enough time to go through. Because when you heard them read the indictment, you heard them read the indictment for Alfred, and you heard them read honor about it, honor about it, honor about it, honor about it, it seemed like he must have shot 15 people. They were referring to one incident, one split-second decision that he had to make to go home to his family. When they read it for Eleazar, honor about, honor about.
Okay, I gotta ask. I didn't hear it. Did they not introduce themselves as which person they are speaking on behalf of? Which defense is this? Who is this attorney connected with?
Honor about. One split-second instant that happened at the same time Alfred did. And he had to make a decision to go home to his family. And when you read honor about, that's a split-second decision that Nathaniel had to make to go home to his family. Because that is the promise that every officer makes to their family. Is that I'm not going to do anything to not come home to you guys tonight. I'm going to make sure I'm safe. And not only am I going to make sure I'm safe, I'm going to make sure he's safe. I'm going to make sure he's safe. I'm going to make sure all of us are safe. What did that prosecutor do? I've never seen somebody justify a woman running at a person with a hammer and go, well, I mean, they should have just backed up. They should have backed off. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. Here's what happened. Melissa Perez cut a fire alarm at an apartment complex with hundreds of people who live there. The alarms go off crazy all over the place. That's what draws fire out. Initially, after the initial cut of the fire alarm, fire comes out to see what's going on. They figure out this woman is cutting the wires. You're going to find out that she was intoxicated, about 2.5 times the legal limit. Drunk. Cutting the wires. They finally figure out, well, I mean, she's damaged all of this stuff. And then there's a response. And you heard that the response was going to be from a couple of SAPD officers at first who start talking to her. As they're talking to her, they're also trying to figure out what's the damage here? How much does it cost? Because, and what you'll learn is that what you damage in criminal mischief and how much it costs matters. Because the more it costs, the more damage you do to something turns it from a misdemeanor to a felony, and that's important. What they find out is that the damage she did was about $7,500 to cut the alarm system, have it go off for everything. Now, here's the problem with that though. That alarm system, what's it there for? It's there to protect everybody who lives in those apartments. It's there to protect from fire. What the prosecutor didn't tell you is she's in an apartment full of candles that are lit. They don't know what's going on. Yes, they can see her, and they can see a lot of lit candles in there too, and she's cut the fire alarm. But yes, first officers arrive on scene, they talk to her, and they tell her, come here. Because they know that she needs to be detained. They know that she is almost certainly going to be arrested. But they don't want to tell her that. Just like any officer will say, look, hey, just come on over here. Come on to the back of my car. I just need to talk to you back here, And once they get him in a situation, they can arrest him. It's a de-escalation tactic. What the prosecutor seemed to suggest is that an officer says, hey, come over here so I can put handcuffs on you. That's not smart. They know that. They know that officers don't do that. So Melissa figured out that that's probably what was about to happen. She was about to get arrested. And so she takes off. Now, evading arrest is not just an arrest. Evading detention is also a charge. So if you were trying to detain someone lawfully, which she just cut the fire alarm stuff, she just done criminal mischief of a felony amount, her detention was lawful. It was lawful for the officer to say, come here, come to the back of the car, let me detain you. So we know that that was lawful. And then she evaded a lawful detention. She ran away from it. And then you had so a couple of officers. You had Rojas as the original, you had Ramos. So Ramos had gone by that time, and she's running to the apartment, shuts the door behind her, and he starts kicking. And the prosecutor told you, well, I mean, they're kicking her door. The law says absolutely that they can kick her door. Absolutely, they can go in after her. Absolutely, there's no Ali oxen free. There's no home base. You can't go destroy the fire alarm at the apartments, endangering hundreds of lives, potentially. Then be questioned about it, run away from the detention, get to your home and you're safe. That's not how that works. They know that's not how that works. We all know that's not how that works. That's not how the world operates. That's not what happens. That's not what's supposed to happen. Because if that was allowed to happen, we would have no order. We would have nothing but chaos. If we had home base and you could just shut the door and that was it. But that's not what happened. They continued to try to get in. And then you heard about Jonathan Salinas. The way the prosecutor described what was going on with Jonathan Salinas was like, oh, everything's fine, it's okay. Well, Jonathan Salinas is approaching that back window. He is trying to get into the home because they can get into the home. Because it is a felony, right? It's a felony amount. It's a felony this. They could have gotten in anyway because she's evading on foot and she's not allowed to do that. And whatever decisions are being made, like, oh, this person, night CID said, oh, it's all right, write it up later. What you're going to find out is it's a good thing that they didn't in terms of the fact that there was a lot more danger that was going on in there to other people than night CID knew about. They were making decisions blind. They're thinking about cutting the alarm. They're thinking about, well, she's evading arrest. But what they come to find out is that there's another person in that apartment. Now you have a woman who's cut the alarms, who's lit a bunch of candles, and now she has another person in there that they can see and they can talk to. The prosecutor told you, well, they asked him to go open the door. He couldn't because he was bedridden. He was invalid. So now they have to deal with that because you can't leave her alone. What, do they all go home? They all just say, all right, well, I guess not. So they're trying to go and get her, and they had every right to. Because as you heard in voir dire, they have a duty to do that. Why do they have that duty? Why do we ask them to have that duty? Why do we ask them to go to danger when we would all run away from it? Why do we ask them to do that? It's because if you don't go in and make an arrest of a person who is behaving the way Melissa Perez was behaving, then what happens next? Who does she hurt? What happens? Does she burn down an apartment complex? Does she kill children? Does she kill babies who were there in that apartment complex? Is it an arson? We don't know. They have to go arrest him. That's why there's a duty. What happens next? Does she go and put that hammer in the head of this guy in the bed? We don't know. They don't know. If it were me or if it were you, we would call the police. But they can't call the police. They have to actually deal with it. They have to go and deal with her. She is acting strangely, sure. She's cutting fire alarms. We know now that she was extremely intoxicated. And then she's running away from the detention, which she can't. So when Salinas is trying to get into that apartment, he's reaching through the window, and you're going to see them do that. Reaching through the window, trying to unlock the door, and she sees him, and she gets that hammer, and she starts to run and swing it at him. And you're going to see on the video that her arm goes outside the window, trying to get him. Salinas draws. The way that they acted was like Salinas was like, oh, no problem. No, he said, you're going to get shot. You're going to get shot. Don't make me do it. You're going to get shot. So you get Salinas. He's backed out. And this is important. This window, the window that they have there, there's a little patio, as the prosecutor described. You can jump over the patio railing. But this window here has a TV in front of it. But as the prosecutor told you, after he backs up, she picks up one of those candles, throws it out of that window, and hits Salinas. And what's important about that is that you will see through the evidence in this trial that she was easily able to throw a projectile through that window and injure a police officer. That's important. Projectile, window, police officer. E-tone. It does call all the officers out. But the E-tone was really going out because he says, I got one at gunpoint, because he is going to shoot her. Salinas was going to shoot her if she comes with that hammer again, because this hammer, this is not a small hammer. And she was smaller, but she had done roofing. This is a roofing hammer. And she is swinging it, and she'll swing it as hard as she can. And it doesn't matter if you're 5'1". You're 5'1" and you swing this into somebody's face. You're 5'1" and you swing this into them, you can cause serious bodily injury or death. Everybody knows that. This is a deadly weapon. Every one of their experts is going to say it. Every one of their witnesses is going to say it. They're all going to say this is a deadly weapon. So what is she doing? She is presenting them with a deadly weapon. She is going towards them, trying to get them with this deadly weapon. And they have a right to go home to their families. They have a right not to let this thing hit them in the face. But they also have a duty to not let her just stay there doing whatever she wants to do with the hammer and the candles and the alarms and everything else that's going on. They have a duty to go in, but they have a right to go home. Right? And that's the difference. That's what they're not seeing. All they're seeing is I don't know, should have gone away. But here's the thing. E-tone goes out, that's where these officers come. Alfred comes out, Eleazar comes out, Villalobos comes out. They come out to protect. Villalobos is a Marine. He was. Villalobos, a good man, a good officer, a great officer. You'll see how he behaved, you'll see how he acted, a great officer. An officer who is willing to put himself in the line. An officer who is willing to try to do what he could, do non-violently. The reason he's trying to get that door open, and the prosecutor didn't tell you that either, is when they're talking, she puts the hammer down. And they think, we can get in there while she has the hammer down and basically try to tackle her or just subdue her so that she's away from that weapon. That's why he's trying to open the door. And he reaches in, and he does click the lock. What he doesn't see is there's a lock up top. He thinks that door is unlocked. And I was glad that at least he pointed out that, he put his foot there, not because, no problem, blah, blah, blah. Put his foot there because he did not want that woman coming out of here with that hammer. So he drew his weapon. He was doing what he could to make sure that he went home to his family. The plans that they're making they're trying to do whatever they can to do their duty as police officers. Because if we had police officers, and really, honestly, at the end of this trial, the result of this trial, just wait and see what we live in, right? Just wait and see what kind of community we live in. If we convict these men of murder and aggravated assault, what office, guess what? Burn it down. Whatever you're going to do. Because if I try to do my duty and go in and get you, and then I have to make sure that I go home to my family, I'll be sitting in this chair, that chair, that chair. Right? It's important. They did the right thing. What the prosecutor tried to tell you is, oh no, it was wrong because they know the pattern. I don't care the pattern. They were right. She was wrong. She cannot.
Your Honor, counsel's getting into what might be closing argument if everything comes in, not laying out what he expects the evidence will show. I would object.
I can rephrase. The evidence will show they were right and she was wrong. The evidence will show this.
Do you guys understand what just happened? I'm like, objection, Your Honor. He needs to put before the comment a state of fact. The evidence will show this hammer would have harmed them. The evidence will show. If he doesn't put that in there, it sounds like a closing argument and not an opening statement.
Could have killed him. And how do you know? How do you know that it could have? Because when he had his hand reached in there, unlocking the door, she came at him with it. How do you know it was scary? Because you had another Salinas, Maria Salinas, was another officer who was behind him. And she drew her weapon. She was scared. And you'll hear her say,
That man knows his weapons. Look how he's holding that. He is holding that like he is a real weapon. Woo, he's had some training.
I almost shot her. And the only reason she didn't shoot her was because he was standing in front of her. And she didn't want to shoot him. You'll hear other officers, V, watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. And he has to get out from the window because she's coming. And what they would say is, well, he should have been in the window. No, he needs to be in the window. That's what his job is to be in the window. His job is to be in the window so we don't have to be. His job is to be in the window so that everybody else can be safe. That's his job. That's what he does. That's what he does. That's what he does. That's their job. And they tried to do what they could. But eventually, they're right. He backs out. They look and formulate different plans. If you remember, counting mule kicks and kicks and kicks, they're not having a whole lot of success over there on that other side. Door. It's a strong door.
15 minutes.
Thank you. It's a strong door. They're not having a lot of success. So they did the final thing that they did, and Nico's about to get up here and talk to you about some of the things individually in that moment and what they would see and how they experienced. But they finally, in that last moment, she is coming with the hammer. They shoot her right here, right under the arm that's got the hammer raised that's going right through that window. You'll see the officers that were in the way. You'll see the officers that could have been hurt. You'll see 4 other officers all draw their weapons. Everybody believes that this is a deadly threat. If this is so weird and crazy, if this is so criminal, if what they did was so criminal, how do 3 people make the exact same decision at the exact same time? They didn't talk about it. It's in a split second. 3 people, exact same. And others behind them would have done it too if they were on the front. So what this trial is going to be about is that those chairs would have been just filled with 3 different people. If the people in the front were in the back and the people in the back were in the front. Because all of them were making that same decision at that same time. That this was a deadly threat that was presented. And then what you're going to see after this is that at first, Detective Soto, who's the lead detective, at first he brings the family in. He shows them the body cam. This is hours later. And he says, look, I mean, she was, just because you have mental problems or anything like that, you could be just as dangerous. And her daughter says, I know. And you're going to hear their daughter says, yes, she's aggressive. She does not like when people question her. The family went in and looked at it and, yeah, and that had to be hard. Detective Soto was in a position at that point hours later, but then all of a sudden something switched. And they filed 3 murder cases. They walked a warrant, which means they walked over and went to a magistrate and filed 3 murder cases against 3 people. You know why there's only 2 murder cases now? They walked that warrant about 10 to 12 hours later after the shooting. They didn't do any investigation at all. Detective Soto went and did a warrant without even seeing or talking to everybody. Something switched. And all of a sudden, they get filed on for murder. You know why there's only 2 murder counts now? It's because they figured out after their investigation that she was only shot twice. One of the officers didn't even shoot her. Right? But he got arrested for murder because their investigation was terrible. It had no basis in reality. It didn't look at any of the evidence that you're supposed to look at when these things happen at all. They didn't even get the benefit that a normal, everyday person would get, which is really all they should get. They didn't get it. So 3 people get arrested for murder. She'd only been shot twice. They didn't overload. They didn't shoot at a time before. They didn't shoot one more time after they heard the word she's down, she's down. She shot twice. As she was coming at 3 officers with a hammer just like that, they had a right to go home to their families. They have that right. She had no right. No right to go into her home after evading arrest. She had no right to go into her home after cutting the fire alarm. She had no right to stay in that home after hitting Officer Salinas with the candle. She did not have that right. None of us did. They had the right. They did what they had to do to go home to their families. The same thing every officer does, and the same thing every officer promises. And at the end of this trial, you're going to see that all of that is true. And now I've asked Mr. Willett.
Totality of the circumstances, thank you, Jason. You're going to hear that phrase quite a bit. Officers talk about totality of the circumstances, and I find it interesting that Mr. Harris left a lot of the circumstances out. If you noticed, he was talking very calmly, and I understand that because this was anything but a calm situation. He talked about it as if it was very nonchalant, that people were just talking and then she didn't want them in, as if she had the authority to tell them not to come in. As if they would have gotten a warrant, that would have changed anything. Can we play it out? The evidence will show, and experts are going to testify. And I'm going to say this. Their experts, Mr. Darrell, your expert's going to agree with me. Their experts are going to agree with us that if they got a warrant, they would have been in the same situation. Because then they would have breached. It's going to call breach. You're going to hear a term about breach. They would have breached, and the same circumstance would have been there. They would have been in the same situation. There's no requirement to get a warrant when you have probable cause to enter. You're going to hear about 9.32, 9.33, Chapter 14, 38 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. You're going to hear about a lot of law through experts. We have experts. They have experts. I anticipate that some of their experts are going to agree with us on a lot of stuff because policing is policing is policing. So let's talk about what Mr. Harris conveniently left out. So after you've heard already from Jason that there was a criminal mischief, they can go in. You don't need a warrant for a felony offense. So they went in. They had permission. After Salinas was trying to get in because he could, she came at him. And look, no one's going to swing hard right now because we don't want to take any chances. I'm going to have a good grip, but I don't want to take a chance. It wasn't. Don't come in my property. You don't. It was. I'm swinging. I'm going at it, and you're going to see she reached out the window. I'm going to change hands, and she's going at him. And Salinas draws his weapon and says, "I'm going to shoot you." And what Mr. Harris didn't tell you, she says, "Shoot me. I'm going to shoot you," and you're going to hear, "Shoot me." So that is what we call an aggravated assault against a peace officer. That is a first-degree felony. Someone facing that, you're going to hear, can spend their life in prison. If that same person, you're going to hear during the testimony, accomplishes their feat and hits somebody in the head with this thing, in here, even from a 5'1" lady, and that person and that officer passes away, this table, and remember I mentioned this to Mr. Looney the other day, and he didn't respond to me, they would charge her with capital murder. So an aggravated assault against a peace officer, David, right, is an attempted capital murder. That's what it is. And that was the first one. And she's saying twice. So as you heard counts, that would have been 2 counts of attempted capital murder. 2 counts of attempted capital murder. And then Ms. Salinas backs up. He doesn't have much to go. There's no duty to retreat. He just tactically retreated. You're going to hear about that as well. Then she gets a candle. And the first thought, because I was watching you, and the first thought, people might think, it's just a candle. But a candle can still be a deadly weapon. You break that candle and it cuts you or hits them, it can cause serious bodily injury. And you can defend yourself. That's the 3rd attempted capital murder. Potentially. It's definitely the 3rd aggravated assault against a peace officer. But that was not talked about that way. So this is a dynamic situation. You're going to hear from experts about a continuum of force used. Their experts are going to answer our questions. Our experts are going to answer their questions. People that have been in the department for 40 years, 30 years, detectives that have investigated these situations for this table, when I was in the office, when we were in the office, and for them. They're going to know our witnesses. And they're going to answer questions honestly for you because they've testified for whomever. They're just here to testify to the truth. That's 3 aggravated assaults. So now she comes after because Nathan does reach over. He does get there. He doesn't know what's going on with Rojas and Ramos. He doesn't know about the mule kicks. He doesn't know about the front kicks that Mr. Harris was talking about. He just shows up and there's 15 officers there. Nobody's planning a murder. They're trying to get a woman out of a house that's committed now a criminal mischief felony and 3 aggravated assaults against peace officers, first-degree felony, arguably 2 attempted capital murders. And now they have to extract this woman. And a warrant wouldn't change anything, Mr. Harris, you know that. A warrant wouldn't have changed anything. And then they find out there's an invalid, there's another man there, and then you're gonna see in the video, there's gonna be a cup of urine, because he can't get out of his bed, he has to pee in a cup. And obviously she's not taking care of him, but you'll be able to decide that yourself. Because he's peeing in a cup. And they have to think about this man after she's cut fire alarms, after she's attempted capital murders, and they don't know what she feels about this guy. They don't know if as soon as they leave to go home, because that's what they're suggesting to you, that she just walks over there, and the man that has to pee in his bed is dead. The man that has to pee in his bed is dead if they don't act, potentially. Experts can talk about that. They can make reasonable assumptions. But the aggravated assaults are not done. Because when Nathan goes in there, because he says, I'm gonna try to unlock the door, because let's try to use less lethal, just try to get her in custody. Even though she's committed these aggravated assaults, he goes over and he reaches in, after some officers are distracted in the back, you're gonna see, and they say, Nate, V, and they're yelling at him, and she comes at him, and it wasn't a trot, Mr. Harris. She's coming at him, you're gonna see for yourself. And she swings at him, and he barely misses. She barely misses. How do you know that? Because you're gonna hear from Maria Salinas, their witness. You're gonna hear from Vince Gomez, their witness. They're talking about it, man, she barely missed. I mean, that close. If she would have now hit Officer Salinas, and now Nathan, his wife is sleeping by herself, maybe, potentially. His parents don't get to see him for Christmas. Barely. And he reaches back. And because he's a Marine, just because he's not affected the same way other people are, it doesn't mean that he wasn't almost killed. And yes, he does, Mr. Harris. He does this because he doesn't want her coming out that door. Why? Because it's dangerous. You will hear that Travis Thompson, their witness, Robert Ramos, their witness, Jonathan Salinas, their witness, and Maria Salinas, their witness, drew weapons. If that is not a proper draw, Mr. Harris, that's an aggravated assault. You don't have to shoot the gun. You're going to hear witnesses testify that if their claim is that's not a proper, nobody should have drawn their weapons, they're not charged with aggravated assault by a peace officer. Conveniently. Totality of the circumstances. You're going to hear that over and over again. And then so at that point, that is the 4th. Then there's a 5th aggravated assault, potential capital murder. Because Sergeant Flores and Nathan come back over again after discussion. You're going to hear about the 5 C's. I won't bore you with it right now. You're going to hear about react plans versus containment plans. You're going to hear about structure and policy. We're going to argue over what policy was and wasn't. Ultimately, policy is not the penal code. Just remember that. But we'll talk about policy. Trust me. We're not going to avoid it. So then as Sergeant Flores, he's not as limber, I'm not being disrespectful, as Nathan, he's taking a little more time getting over the rail. She's coming at him and they're yelling at him. Alejandro is sitting there because he's been talking to her the whole time. He sees her coming, he draws his weapon, he fires 5 shots first. This is the first round of volleys. Mr. Harrison, talk about that. And then she runs back and he missed. There's a lot of stress. Our experts are going to testify to the stress of shooting. You're going to hear about a Tooler rule. It's a 21-foot rule that if somebody has a knife within 21 feet or a hammer, that by the time you get your weapon out and put it on your target, someone can reach you within 21 feet of a hammer or a knife and do harm to you. SBI, serious bodily injury, or kill you. She was within 21 feet, by the way, and she's moving fast. And so then Alejandro shoots, she backs up. Now, you're going to hear experts talk about this. If somebody is shot at and they retreat just to regain themselves, and you're going to see, because we're going to stop the video. I mean, she's there, and then she comes again, and then that's when they shot.
8 minutes.
Thank you, sir. And then that's when all 3 of the officers at the same time shot, but other officers drew their weapon, but they couldn't shoot because you have to know what's in front of you. We'll look at the gun safety rules, and you hear about that. And we're just tipping the iceberg because we're going to dissect all this. And there's going to be things out there that, once again, it's interesting that some of these facts were left out for you. We want you to hear it all. We're not going to object to the sounds and the hearsay on the videos. You're going to see, let it in. We talked about that, right? Let the jury hear about it. We want you to hear about all this stuff. But we're going to ask you to focus on the law. Not policy, the penal code, right? Not your feelings, but facts. We're going to ask for all those things because in the end, the deceased, unfortunately, this is tragic, I get it. But this same table, which just frustrates me, I'm sorry, because they did what they did, and they would have charged her with capital murder if she would have accomplished her goal of striking any one of these officers. She would be sitting, I wouldn't have represented her, but she would have been sitting at that chair right there. And you would be making the same argument I'm making, right, David? And so now it's up to you. Because we said in jury selection, this is a system of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so we're glad that it's you making this decision, not the government. And we're going to ask you to consider it all the totality of the circumstances. And then the investigation after, as Jason talked about. Why? Why do you walk a warrant in 15 hours? These are not cartel members. They're not going anywhere. And you're going to hear evidence if that's normal in Bexar County, regardless who's DA. Is that normal to walk warrants on officers? When at first it appeared like it was a good shoot, and I'm going to submit to you that it was absolutely a good shoot. So we're going to ask you to consider all that. And whether their expert or their detective, Soto, even looked at all the evidence and whether the government supports a detective walking a warrant, filling out a sworn document, presenting it to a magistrate, and saying, I swear to you these facts are true when they're not true. I wonder if the government supports that. Let me submit to you they shouldn't, because obviously they do. And at the end of this trial, we're going to ask you to come back with a just verdict, a righteous verdict, that these three men are not guilty. Thank you very much.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
May it please the court, counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. One second. One breath. One heartbeat. That's the time that Alejandro had to make a decision in this case. Okay? And he had to make that decision because he was faced with a life or death situation. It wasn't his death. It was of his two partners. He was acting in defense of them because the evidence is going to show that he was right on the other side of the railing of that balcony. Okay? And he was acting selflessly to protect his fellow brothers. Okay? And so we want you to consider that. I know that the jury, y'all were talking about how these things can happen in a split second. And from what you've been hearing, you can see that there was some talking going on, but then in a split second, you see Melissa Perez running, and Mr. Harris said running at the window. She wasn't running at the window. She was running at the people at the window. I mean, that's convenient. It's kind of like when they said yesterday, these are excuses. No, it's called justification. Under the law, right? Under the law and under human nature. We all know that's a basic survival instinct, okay? And we all know, just looking at this, anybody can tell you that this is a deadly weapon. I mean, it can kill you, but what you have to remember too is deadly force is not just killing somebody, or causing serious bodily injury, right? Okay? And serious bodily injury can be anything that's capable of causing death, or impairment of a limb, or impairment of an organ. Okay? Now you're going to see in these videos, she gets close to these men's head. What's the biggest organ in your body? Your brain. How about your eyes? Okay? So, no, she was not running at the window like there's some specter there. She was running with bad intentions, Chucky style, okay? Or like a tomahawk with bad intentions. And you're going to see in some of these frames, she's doing this, right? She is, and she's a roofer, okay? And they told you what her size was. She's taller and and weighs more than Mr. Alejandro, Officer Alejandro. Okay? So she was not a small person, and she knew how to use this, and she knew what she was doing when she picked it up. Now, what was curious in Mr. Harris's opening statement is he mentions nothing about the justification with regard to these men using deadly force. All he talked about was, oh, they really shouldn't have been there. They really shouldn't have been there. Once she asked them to leave and told them they couldn't come in, then, they shouldn't have been there. And then when they are trying to follow the law and doing what they're supposed to, prevent injury, when a felony is committed like this, they're going in. Oh, as long as they don't go in and she threatens them, then everything is fine. Now, another thing that you may be wondering, when the police were called, when the fire department was called around 11:30, I think it was engine 36, and it was Lieutenant Hudson who was in charge of the San Antonio Fire Department unit that went out there. He talked to Melissa Perez for like 30 minutes when they got out there. Okay, all the neighbors were out there because they all abandoned the buildings because the fire alarms were all going off. She was getting into arguments with the neighbors, all right? One neighbor even videotaped her. Lieutenant Hudson videotapes her when he's talking to her. And she starts to tell him how she owns the buildings. She's telling the neighbors, I own these buildings, that the FBI is listening to me, and that's why I had to cut the wires. And Lieutenant Hudson says she's very paranoid. So when Officer Riojas, the first officer to go out there, he knows all this. He sees this and what's provided to him. So he's already aware of what's going on, that she's paranoid, that she's psychotic. But when he first gets there and he talks to her, you'll see she was calm with Lieutenant Hudson from the fire department. And for the first minute and a half, when Riojas talks to her, she's calm. She starts to get irritated when Riojas starts to say, do you have mental illness? Or are you on medications? And then she starts to get defensive, like it was brought out earlier. Her daughter says, yes, she doesn't like being questioned. Okay? So, at that point, you're going to hear, per the San Antonio Police Department policy manual, and Mr. Harris kept talking about ED. I don't know if you guys know what ED means. It's an emergency detention. Okay? That's when somebody is a danger to themselves or a danger to others. Okay? Now, Officer Riojas, and then when he first starts talking to Melissa and he asks her about cutting the wires, she denies it. She denies she did it. But then Lieutenant Hudson says, come on, tell him what you told me. And so then she admits it. Riojas had probable cause at that time to arrest her for a felony. He did not. He had probable cause to emergency detain her. Mr. Harris keeps talking about, later on after she ran back to her apartment, then Riojas decided maybe he could emergency detain her. There was plenty of the evidence right there for him to emergency detain her. And to emergency detain somebody, you got to cuff them. The thing is, he could have called Ramos and said, hey, get a hold of MedCom, the unit that's in charge of finding a hospital bed for somebody who needs to be emergency detained. He didn't tell anybody about that. Riojas didn't say that. He didn't didn't tell SAPD. He didn't tell Ramos. He could have used. Now he said, "Well, I didn't want to cuff her because she was aggressive and acting angry." Well, you're going to see she wasn't. But when she was calm, he had 3 big firefighters right there with him, and one of them, the lieutenant, was even saying, "Hey, I got this video." Oh, he even offered to say, "Hey, you want to take this as evidence?" And Riojas was like, "Nah, no." And you're going to hear too that Riojas and Ramos, this wasn't their district, and you're going to see that they were basically lazy about this whole thing. They didn't like responding to this because it was out of their district. The district was Salinas, who was the 3rd officer to show up. Okay? So, Ramos shows up about 3 minutes after Riojas. And Melissa Perez is there with the firefighters. At that point, Riojas, who still hasn't done anything that he was supposed to do per the manual, and knowing that this woman is clearly a danger to herself and others, you got all the neighbors out there, he doesn't say, hey, let's walk over here with Officer Ramos, and both of them can detain her. Or even before Ramos, he could have called on the San Antonio Fire Department people to detain her. Or he could have called Medcom and say, hey, I need even more backup because I want to detain this person. He didn't do that. Instead, he says, hey, Melissa, follow me. And he starts walking back to his own unit, 35, 40 feet away, when Ramos is over here in the complete other direction. He violates policy because he's letting her walk behind him. Doesn't know what she's doing. Now, once again, this is a woman, a felony, probable cause for a felony arrest, certainly probable cause to be emergency detained. And he gets in his car and he starts to run things on the computer and he says, stand in front of my car. She takes off. And then Ramos says, hey, come back here. So the second officer, Ramos says, hey, come back here. She takes off. Ramos starts walking after her. So it's no surprise that she makes it into her apartment, which is apartment 3102, not 202. She makes it back to her apartment and she closes the door. So then they begin to try to determine, what are we going to do? Okay? And they do talk to some supervisors, and this is going to be interesting. They said Officer Salinas is going to be their first officer. Officer Salinas, when he arrives, remember, this is his district. He's the third officer to show up. They tell you that it was Sergeant Flores okayed the idea to go in to the apartment. Okay? When you see Officer Salinas' initial report, he doesn't say anything about whose idea it was to go into the apartment. Okay? But when they talk to him later on, Salinas says, I told Sergeant Flores, now that I found out that it is a higher amount, and they don't even really know. I mean, it could have been because the guy says, hey, I know it's going to be expensive to replace this entire fire alarm system, which, by the way, had been damaged before, but we'll get into that, the evidence of that. So Salinas says, he calls Flores and he says, hey, now that I found out that it is a felony amount, she's sitting there in the living room, I can go in and get her through the window. It was Salinas' idea. I can go in and get her through the window. And Flores goes, okay, it's a felony, okay. Then these gentlemen say to Salinas, well, that's not in your report. And Salinas even owns it more. He goes, no, it was my idea. So when they tell you, they go back and they tell the other two, it was Sergeant Flores' idea to go in. No, it was Jonathan Salinas' idea to go in. So you had Riojas. None of this would have ever happened if Riojas would have done his job, and their own witnesses are going to tell you that. Their own witnesses are going to tell you that, okay? And then Travis Thompson, who was also out there, who they say they're going to call as a witness, is going to say, I told these guys, he said, I was going to pull my gun too. She was a danger. She was using deadly force. And he said, and by the way, he said, they kept trying to get me to say, but per the manual, there was no exigent circumstances to go get her. And Thompson said, no, I told them there was. Hot pursuit, which is interesting because yesterday I brought up that Mr. Lunan wasn't using that phrase at all. Hot pursuit, which the United States Supreme Court has recognized as, you see somebody committing a crime, as Mr. Goss said, does it mean they get away with it if they make it to their house? No. Hot pursuit. Officer Thompson says, when I brought up hot pursuit, they didn't want to hear about that. They said, no, look at the manual. Let's not talk about the law. Look at the manual. Okay? Now, Maria Salinas. Earlier, before this even happened, and Eleazar Alejandro, you're going to see, is a fine man. He's a veteran. He's going to be a father. His wife is a police officer. She's expecting. Right before this, he and Maria Salinas are out and doing their thing in their district, and there's some guy walking on the street because he'd just been kicked out of his house, and he's like, my girlfriend's mad at me, and I think her brothers are going to come over, and he said, I don't have a place to go. He wasn't in talk to her or anything, he was just out on the street, and Alejandro says, well, get in the car. He said, I can't drive you to your mom's house who's in the northeast part of town, but I can take you to a store. And he takes him over there and he gets on the phone and is talking to this guy's mother in Spanish. And then he says, hey, look, I can't stick around with you because the E-tone came out. He said, there's an officer in trouble. I got to go. Okay? So Alejandro takes off. Maria Salinas has already taken off. When Alejandro gets there, you've heard about all this time, he is there for 12 minutes. 12 minutes before this shooting happens. And you're going to see he was only there for 12 minutes. Once again, an hour and a half before, if Riojas had done his job, this wouldn't have happened. Oh, I didn't even say Ramos, who they're calling as a witness. This is really interesting. Riojas, Ramos, and Salinas still all have their jobs. You're going to see on the evidence is going to show Ramos, fine officer, he does, among other things, he starts to say to Melissa Perez, she's wearing a bandana, what are you, a gang member? When he's talking to her and she's inside her house. And then he starts to use his taser to threaten to tase her dog. I'm going to tase your dog. Okay? And then he starts to say, are you a gang member? What are you on? And then he's flashing his flashlight in the living room where she is, and she starts to flash a flashlight back. And he says, mine's bigger. And then he turns to a buddy and he says, you got to find your fun where you can get it. Okay? Now, one thing I forgot to say, Salinas knew from prior experience that Melissa Perez had mental issues. Neither Salinas, Ramos, or Riojas ever told Sergeant Flores about that. And then remember, Riojas didn't do his job in the first place because he didn't ED or arrest her immediately, and none of this would have happened. And throughout all of this, none of these people, none of these other officers ever told Sergeant Flores or these other gentlemen about what her condition was. As a matter of fact, when you watch the videos, those two are moseying off in the corners. They're not anywhere to be found. It's these three who show up, and they showed up because an officer was in trouble, right? I got one at gunpoint. Salinas pulls his gun on her. I'm going to shoot you. Shoot me, right? Then the E-tone goes out. So when Mr. Harris said that she thrown the candle before, no. She threw the candle out the window and hit him after the E-tone occurred. So the E-tone was for Salinas having somebody at gunpoint. Then she throws the candle out and hits him. Now, you're also going to hear from the experts. Their experts, from the medical examiner, from their lead detective, Soto, and he's quite the trip. They walked warrants in 16 hours. There is no way that guy looked at every single body camera or all the evidence in this case. When you look at his affidavits for the warrants of arrest, a lot of the significant information is missing. Now, what you're going to find out is within 16 hours of their arrest, who was in on the decision to arrest these guys within 16 hours? These people over here. They worked in tandem with the SAPD administration to walk warrants on these three public servants within 16 hours without looking at all of the evidence. And you're going to see in Soto's affidavit, it is replete with missing information. And then, a lot of these people were afraid to talk to us. We just talked to Thompson yesterday, and he's the one who says, yeah, they didn't want to hear about hot pursuit. And these guys are going to tell you they had the right to go in, and deadly force was appropriate. This was a tragedy. There's no question about it. Okay? There is no question about it. This is one of those cases where it's a choice between the horrible and the terrible. All right? But these men didn't wake up that morning, and when they put their clothes on and put their badge on and left their families, decided, you know what? I'm going to go get somebody tonight. You'll see that they were out there to help. Alejandro is a hostage negotiator. He was actually, about to, number one on the list to make the SWAT team. And you can even hear him later. He said, well, now that I've been involved in a shooting, everybody knows they get put on administrative leave. There go my chances to get on SWAT. Okay? So he knew when he acted selflessly because his life wasn't in danger, he was doing the right thing. And remember what we talked about yesterday, the duty to prevent injury isn't just to other people, it was also to Melissa Perez. You're going to see in the 12 minutes when Alejandro is there, he is trying to talk her down. And she says, you need a warrant, you don't got a warrant. And he's like, well, if we went and got a warrant, would that be, okay or whatever? And she's like, no, a warrant for what? There was nothing. She committed multiple felonies, but she doesn't know what the warrants are for. Okay? She's psychotic. And remember yesterday, Mr. Lunan, when he was talking about defensive property, how you have the right to use force to defend your property. What was the main thing about it? It's got to be reasonable, right? It's got to be reasonable. I think those are contradictions in terms. For somebody in the midst of a psychotic episode to be found acting reasonably. Now, when they talk about Santos de la Rosa, that's the invalid man that was in that apartment. No one knows anything about him. No one. He died within a month. SAPD took a statement from him that's maybe 5 or 6 lines long. The chief of police who was there at the scene and gave a press conference didn't even know he was in the apartment. Okay? Alejandro, who's a hostage negotiator, says when somebody says there's this invalid man in this bed with a glass of urine right next to it with all these burning candles, he's like, we got to go in now. Right? You don't know what this woman's going to, you think all the other neighbors are going to be comfortable with SAPD just saying, you know what, we're out of here, you're on your own, and that man's on his own. And Mr. Harris talked about her family, that she had all these extra bedrooms because the family was the light of her life and she had all these kids. The evidence is going to show her children were all taken from her. Okay? And you're going to hear evidence why. Because of her psychoses, because of other issues that we'll get into. And you're going to hear about multiple acts of aggression because of that. All right? So for them to say, oh, and he has no idea, he said she had a guess. They have absolutely no idea who this man was. They didn't even know where he went after they released him that night. Okay? So, did you want to address? Okay. The last thing I want to say is, before Mr. Cifuentes comes up here for the last 5 minutes of the time I took from him, that the law permits any human being, not just these people, to stop a threat before they're stopped by the threat. Okay? So we're asking you to keep that in mind when you listen to all the evidence in this case. Thank you very much.
I want to focus at a critical point in time. You'll see it, we'll show you in the videos, we'll play it in slow-mo, we'll play it regular speed, we'll play it frame by frame, however you want to look at it. What you're going to see is the critical moment in time is at 2:02:04. 2:02:04. This is when Alejandro is at the rail, and actually he's probably this close to the window, the patio window that I'm in front of the juror right now, because it's a 6-foot width patio. All of our counsel have been demonstrating probably 3 times the distance when they've backed up. But there's no ability to back up because of the railing. And so when Alfred Flores goes over the railing, he goes over counterclockwise, and he's like this. The back of his head is to the window. And we know that because his body camera is facing away from the window. Sergeant Edwin Rivera is over here, and his line of sight is into the head of Alfred Flores and the window where at 2:02:07 Melissa Perez swings the hammer, and she braces herself against the opening of the window and hits the window at 20207. When she hits the window at 20207, the back of Alfred Flores' head is probably 3 to 5 feet away from that window. So Eleazar Alejandro said he fired because he feared that Melissa Perez was going to throw that hammer through the window. And we told you about apparent danger and reasonable danger, and if he reasonably believed that the hammer was going to be thrown through that window at a distance of 3 to 5 feet away, you can see why he reasonably feared this hammer was going to kill his sergeant. And he fired 5 times. He missed. When she charged at the window and swung, and what they didn't tell you is there's 5 or 6 body cameras that captured the red handle. Dallin Young could see, he couldn't see it, but the shield that he had showed through the glass that the hammer was being swung. Travis Thompson had a critical window, a video, that nobody looked at until November 6th, 5 months after the arrest warrant, a couple of months after Soto submitted the report to the chief of police. The chief of police signed off on it, pencil whipped it, never looked at any videos. The command staff never looked at any videos. They didn't look at Travis Thompson's video, which clearly shows Melissa Perez swinging the hammer, hitting the window at 20207. And Alfred Flores' head was 3 to 5 feet away from that hammer. Melissa Perez returned into the interior of her apartment, and then she looked at the patio window, was having her hammer, lunged forward and ran and closed the distance in a short period of time, and that's when the second volley was fired. This is information that the prosecution left out. This is information that was falsified in the affidavit, and we'll get into that in greater detail.
Yeah, Judge, we're going to reserve our opening statement for the defense case in chief, and then let the jurors hopefully hear some evidence.
All right. Members of the jury, I'm going to give you a short break, no more than 15 minutes. Let me go ahead and tell you this before I excuse you. You may come across individuals that tell you that they're watching something online, YouTube, whatever that circumstance is. Do not be in any way sensitive.
Okay, guys. I want to say that this courtroom is not a very big courtroom, and there's a lot of people in this courtroom. Been there myself. Not as a defendant. But anyway, excuse me. So, what are your thoughts on these opening statements? Boy, I've got 11 half pages. They are painting 2 very different pictures. What are your thoughts? I'm just by what I have heard, I'm shocked that we're even sitting in trial. Honestly. If she did aggress them through an open window with a hammer, she is a roofer for her career. She may be small, but man, you've got a good upper body strength when you're a roofer. I mean, you should be in good shape in general, but being on top of the roof, throwing those bags of roofing material, hammering all day, even though it's electric, you can do handheld. It's still a lot of strength involved. She's not by any means somebody who could not defend or handle herself, much less it sounds like she could actually very well aggress. Not only that, it's not like someone like my mom, love you, mama, but you threw a hammer at somebody, chances of you hitting them are 1 in a million. No, you're probably closer than that, but she's extremely skilled with that hammer. You think they're innocent and this is a waste of taxes putting these officers on trial? They've lost their job. They've lost their reputation. One of the guys that pulled the trigger was up to be on SWAT, and that kicked him out of SWAT. This is horrible. And the fact when they warned her, we're going to shoot you. We're going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to shoot you. And she goes, well, shoot me. And she was 2.5 times the legal limit under the influence of alcohol. What? I mean, it's just, I'm shocked that we're up on trial on this. I have got to confess. I'm going to just kind of let this roll for a minute. It is interesting to see the attorneys all together, the witnesses. This is one of the officers who is on trial. There's another officer. I would not want to be them. Okay, here.
Your Honor, I do apologize for the delay. I know she was down in the witness room.
I'm going to swear you in if you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right. You may need to lower the microphone, make sure everybody can hear you, okay?
Okay.
Can you introduce?
I can't say emphatically whether they're innocent or guilty. I'm just saying I'm leaning towards that side. Here's where I get more on the not guilty side. If it is true, and they prove this to be true, you have 15 officers. You had 3 that actually fired and 5 more standing behind pulling their weapons. When all of those officers pull their weapons all at the same time, to me, that really tends to be on the reasonable end. If only one of them had pulled and shot, that would be a little bit different for me. So I'm just saying.
Introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the court reporter, please.
Yes, my name is Linda Flores, Lindaflores.
All right, state.
Ma'am, how are you this afternoon?
Good, thank you.
Okay, and what do you do for
I work for the San Antonio Police Department, and I act as the custodian of records.
Okay, and as the custodian of records, if you could just briefly describe what your duties are.
I provide police records, anything from police reports to digital media evidence.
And specifically the digital media evidence, does that also include officer body cam?
Yes, it does.
From your knowledge, the officer body cam, the SAPD officers wear their body cams and the events they record, is that conducted in the normal course of business for the San Antonio Police Department, executed by and through its officers?
Yes.
And the items that are recorded on that body cam footage, does it reflect something that those officers saw at or near the time the events recorded actually took place?
Yes.
Are the originals, the download of those body cams, are those retained on the servers of the San Antonio Police Department pursuant with your evidence retention policies?
Yes.
Did my office call you and ask you to bring downloaded DVDs of body cam footages for SAPD officers Alfred Flores, Eleazar Alejandro, and Nathaniel Villalobos?
Yes.
For SAPD case number 2023-137-586, which took place on or about June 23rd of 2023?
Yes.
And did you bring those recordings with you to the courthouse today?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, if their intent is to offer the body cameras, we don't have any objection to it, so.
Thank you, Your Honor. Then for completeness, I will simply mark Defendant Flores's as State's Exhibit 1. Defendant Alejandro as State's Exhibit 2. And Defendant Villalobos is State's Exhibit 3.
All right, there be no objection. States Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 are permitted.
Judge, under the rule of optional completeness, we would ask that the body cameras of Jacob Barcenas, Andrew Chernak, Vince Gomez, Andrew Lamb, Ricardo Neary, Robert Ramos, Edwin Rivera, Matthew Robinson, Jesus Rojas, Jonathan Salinas, Maria Salinas, Travis Thompson, and Dallin Young, and then I have more, Mark Alfaro, Lucas Andrade, Landon Day, Hector Figueroa, Bruce Holston, John Rodriguez, Eric Rubio, Victor Sierra, and Steven Solano be included. And I believe that Detective Ronald Soto has body-worn cameras as well. And pursuant to optional completeness, we would also ask that the relevant Axon audit trails for all of those body cameras be admitted. And the user Axon audit trails for the Chief of Police, Deputy Chief, Assistant Chief Fox, Captain Van Geffen, Lieutenant Frisky, and Galindo Villanueva, and also be included.
Response?
Yeah, first I would object under counsel's theory of the rule of optional completeness that the only exhibits the state tends to mark is those of defendants, and they, as Ms. Flores has testified, they are complete. Additional exhibits, which may come in through another witness, I'm not objecting that we all want to see it. I'm just simply saying that counsel's rule of optional completeness is inapplicable. Additionally, that may be counsel's case, which we will have time to do, but that's not what the state's case is at this point in time. I would like to further develop my examination of this witness with a few more questions.
Well, Your Honor, under the rule of optional completeness, the remainder of related writings or recorded statements can be introduced. And all of the body cameras and all of the writings are related to these three videos because it's the same incident. And we know it's the same incident because the state provided us the body cameras and they provided us the audit trails. And as officers of the court, we're representing that those body cameras and those audit trails do relate to the same incident. And the purpose of optional completeness is to make sure that the recording is not misleading. Because the conduct of the officers is captured on other people's videos as well. So it has to be introduced.
Overruled.
Your Honor, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Since this witness is a witness that would obviously, I think they would stipulate, provide the same predicate for all of those body cameras, can we at least just have a stipulation so we don't have to call her back every time we want to introduce any of these things, if you guys agree to that?
And Your Honor, that's precisely where I thought I would go with my follow-on questions. They may actually come in at the appropriate time with other witnesses, but as counsel would open the door, if I could complete my questioning, I think that may resolve it all.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, along with the records and documents that are kept by the San Antonio Police Department, to your knowledge, does every SAPD call have an accompanying document called an incident detail report?
Yes.
And from your knowledge, does the incident detail report reflect every officer that is dispatched to a particular call and
Yes.
assigned to it? And is the incident detail report also a record that you keep?
Yes.
Now approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
As far as I'm showing you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 4 for identification. What is State's Exhibit 4 for identification?
It's an incident detail report.
And is it the incident detail report for SAPD case number 2023-137586?
Yes.
And I'm going to flip over to the back of the first page. And do you see a listing of police officers by unit assignment? Does that page reflect the officers in totality that are assigned to this particular case?
Yes, it does.
And if counsel will give me a little leeway, I would presume that every one of these officers, you heard the names, Rojas, Andrade, Alfaro, etc., down through Rubio, Flores, I even see Chief McManus's name. Does this incident detail report correctly and accurately reflect all the names that were assigned to this case as counsel asked you on cross-examination?
Yes.
Do you have body cam footage for any of these officers on this incident detail report? Is it also stored on the servers of the San Antonio Police Department as you have described, being that of the defendants?
Yes.
Have you provided those body cam footages with a certified business record affidavit that you provided to my office sometime in the summer of 2023 when this case was filed?
Yes.
Did you also provide 911 audio recordings?
Yes.
Did you also provide vehicle camera footage as we had it?
Yes.
Did the filings on the servers of the San Antonio Police Department related to this case, did it also include evidence, pictures taken by evidence technicians, evidence from the medical examiner's office, etc.?
Yes.
All of that has been provided under your authentication as being true and accurate for this call, correct?
That's correct.
And we could repeat this process for each and every individual place of that thing, but you've given it to me and you can't say this. We've done our best to provide to them, and it's accurate. If the parties can agree, I think we don't have to, we can force it, using what we both got, I think we don't have to bring Ms. Flores back every time.
Okay, the only additional thing is that if you could just ask everything that Mr. Sefenta said, I think is the issue.
Now, you guys have an opportunity to cross as well, just so you know.
Sure. Yes, sir.
That way, if you want to clean that up, you're welcome to do that.
And with that, Your Honor, I will pass the witness.
Ms. Flores, hi. My name's Jason Goss. And so did you hear Mr. Sefenta read out that list?
Yes,
And he included some other things, that, like the Axon and the Ghost Trail. Would you also be the custodian for those?
that's correct.
Okay, so everything we talked about, including all the 911 calls for this case, including all the IDRs and everything Mr. Sefenta said, you would be the custodian of records and could testify that those were true, accurate, kept in the regular course of business and all of that for all those things.
Yes,
I'll pass.
All right. First of all, did you take the required TCOL course on digital media in order to be custodian of records?
yes.
Okay, describe the TCOL course and why you have to take that course.
I took it's CJIS course, just so that I could have access to the records.
All right, and why is it important to have education and training on access to these types of records?
To understand the security of the records,
All right, and tell us what the importance of security is.
because evidence cannot be shared on active criminal cases.
All right, and does the city of San Antonio have a computer user policy that prohibits one employee from sharing a login with another employee?
Correct, yes.
All right, and so is that prohibited to share access on Axon? You have to be able to look at an Axon video, body camera video, you have to log in with a username and a password, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so it's prohibited by city policy to look on someone else's computer with their log-on videos, isn't it?
Yes,
All right, and if you're going to watch a video with someone else, you're required to notate in the audit trails that you're watching the videos with someone else on their computer, correct?
I note all use, so yes, I would say that's correct.
All right, and so the reason you want to notate that is so that way you assure the security that you talked about, right?
Yes,
And so you're taught that if you fail to notate or log that you watched with someone else, it didn't happen, right?
yes,
All right, so if you didn't log or notate and then later on you say, oh, well, I watched it on someone else's camera, that's no good, is it?
no,
All right, and that's not believable, is it?
no,
And that's not acceptable in the San Antonio Police Department, is it?
no.
All right, so did you bring the user audit trails for the chief of police, the assistant chief, Karen Fox at the time, I believe it's deputy chief Hector Salas, Captain Van Geffen's user audit trail, Lieutenant Frisky's user audit trail, and Sergeant Galindo's user audit trail for this incident?
No,
Okay, you did not bring it?
no, the audit trail is specific to the case, not the users.
Okay. Would you agree that the Axon system has a user audit trail so you can see whether Chief McManus ever looked at any of these videos? You agree that's possible, right?
Yes,
Did you bring that user audit trail?
no, sir.
All right. So you have no knowledge whether he ever looked at the videos?
No, I do not have knowledge.
All right. So if I told you that the Chief of Police, Assistant Chief Karen Fox, Deputy Chief Hector Salas, Captain Van Geffen, Lieutenant Frisky, and Sergeant Galindo in the month of August 2023 reviewed a prosecution guide of Ronald Soto, would you be able to provide a user audit trail to see if those individuals ever looked at any of the videos referenced in Ronald Soto's prosecution guide?
Yes,
All right. And also, in the Axon audit trail, are you familiar with the term buffered, accessed, and streamed?
no,
Okay. So if I were to represent to you that streamed means that you're actually viewing the video and there's a timestamp and we can see how long someone viewed the video, you would agree that's true.
yes,
So if there are 15 videos that are over an hour long apiece, if we were to go to the Axon audit trail, we could see whether Detective Soto actually viewed any of the videos or all of the videos.
yes,
And if his name does not appear on an audit trail for a particular officer's body camera, if he represented that he looked at all available digital media and his name isn't on a user audit trail, would you agree that a representation that he looked at everything would be untrue?
yes,
All right. And we could see from the user audit trail whether not only did he look at everything, but how long he looked at it. So if a video is over an hour long and he only streamed it for a few minutes, we know that he didn't look at the entire video. Correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the continuation of this line of questioning. Ms. Flores, in her capacity, is the custodian. She keeps it. She is not the individual user of each and every portion of medium, nor is, I would seriously doubt, she would be the person to comment on the chief of police's viewing habits. She's the wrong witness for it. Hers is assuring that the data is kept in the normal course of business in the San Antonio Police Department, that the original materials that these are representations of are retained within the San Antonio Police Department for the retention policies, and that the copies she has turned over to the court and marked are accurate to what's in her servers. But everything else, to agree on individuals did or did not use, she's not the sponsor of it, only of the documentation.
Are you through? If you're through,
For now.
I'd like to respond.
For now.
All right, you can respond.
My response is this. We're not in the federal courts. The scope of cross can go beyond direct. This is relevant information. She has indicated that she possesses the expertise and knowledge to answer these questions. And these questions are certainly relevant to the issue as to whether the San Antonio Police Department conducted an adequate, complete, fair, and full investigation. And if they did not conduct a complete, full, fair investigation, then that goes to the issue of reasonable doubt. And I would ask if any of my colleagues would join in my representation as to why this is relevant.
And Judge, she testified she does this. I mean, so she's the one, she's the custodian record. You can't have her bring in some evidence but not talk about how that evidence is maintained. She knows how it's maintained. She answered the questions that she knows what the audit trail means and doesn't mean. I know it's uncomfortable for the government, but she's the proper witness to answer those questions, and they can bring a witness to give context to that later on. So this is a way out of disability issue, and then she obviously can testify to that shit.
And the scope, as counsel Mr. Cervantes said, that exceeds the scope of my case, and the idea of the investigation is not the issue before this jury. The issue before this jury is whether or not there is evidence to prove the defendants caused the death of Melissa Perez with legal justification or not. Not the investigation or when someone dotted an I, crossed a T, filed a paper.
Judge, I can't believe a felony prosecutor is saying that. To be honest with you, that you should be ashamed of yourself. Of course their investigation is that issue.
I'll worry about my shit. You handle yours.
Don't act like a tough guy here.
What are you?
So all I'm saying, Judge, all I'm saying is...
Hold on. So the court says hold on. That means everybody holds on. Right? I understand the emotions and everything else. So let me just say this. I'm going to rule. The question to this witness is whether or not the video being over an hour long and somebody screaming it for only a few minutes, that she would then know that that person didn't look at the entire video. That was a question. I'm going to sustain that objection at this time, and you're welcome to rephrase if you need to, counsel.
All right. Let me re-ask this. If the system shows that they streamed the video for 2 minutes and stopped, and they didn't stream an hour-long video more than the 2 minutes they streamed it, in your opinion, would that be sufficient evidence in your mind that they viewed the entire video?
Objection. Her opinion is not relevant to this issue.
Overrule.
So the purpose of the audit trail is to document its usage.
Okay. And if someone said that they only used it for 2 minutes by streaming it, and it's an hour-long video, would your opinion be that they only viewed the video for 2 minutes, or that they viewed the video for the full hour?
The length of time the video was viewed will be documented in the audit trail.
All right. So if it wasn't viewed for a full hour, then your opinion would be that if it's an hour-long video, that they didn't view the video for the full hour, correct?
Correct.
All right. And the audit trail also indicates when someone first viewed the video, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, you said you didn't bring any audit trails?
No, sir.
All right. Oh, let me ask you about IDRs. Since we're talking about evidence that you're sponsoring, you indicated that the IDRs, the incident detail report, which is also called the key card, documents everybody assigned a car, correct?
That's correct.
And do you have a copy of the IDR in this case in front of you?
I just brought the first few pages.
First few pages?
Yes, just so I could tell the case number and the officers assigned.
Okay. So you were asked about William McManus's call number, which was 001. Do you have enough of that IDR?
Yes,
Okay. You have the entire IDR or just parts of it?
just the first few pages to indicate the date, the case number, and the list of officers assigned.
Okay. Let me see if I can find it. If I can have a minute, Your Honor. And if I may approach the witness?
Yes.
May I have permission to stand by the witness while I ask questions?
Yes.
And do with Ms. Flores? Ms. Flores, I could give us a court reporter first. I'm representing to you that defendant's exhibit number 1 is the IDR that the state provided to us in discovery. Can you look through that and see if that, with the exception of the bar number that's in the watermark on each page, is that a true and correct copy of the IDR?
Yes, sir.
All right. So can you look through that IDR and tell us the time of arrival of Chief William McManus?
So 0308?
0308, so at 3:08 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay, and does the IDR also tell us when he left?
The complete time is 10:37.
So what does that mean?
I couldn't tell you exactly. You'd probably need a communications dispatcher to tell you for sure.
Okay, is there a timestamp that tells us the time of departure for William McManus?
I do not see it. Arrived, incomplete. No, I don't see it.
All right, so if we see the time of departure, would you agree that they it indicates the assignment time, the en route time, the arrival time, and the delay available complete. Those are the
Yes.
times.
Yes.
All right. So can you tell us, based upon that, what the time is for William McManus? Tell us the time for each category.
For McManus, so assigned is 2:54, en route 2:54, arrived 03:08, and complete is 04:05.
0405. So, to your knowledge, does that represent that he was on scene for approximately 1 hour?
Yes, sir.
All right. We would offer defendant's exhibit number 1 at this time. I'm assuming counsel already has a copy, but if not, I'll tender it to him.
No objections to defense's 1.
All right, admitted.
All right. Let's go through some of the details on this key card. I'm showing you a column on page 3 of 6, and it has a bold heading that calls comments. Do you know what that column, the purpose of that column is?
Usually it's the comments made on the 911 call.
Okay, so who enters that information?
Dispatchers.
Okay, so it appears, tell me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at a time of 23:32 of the date of 6/22/2023. That seems to be the first entry in the comments section. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, before you read this, the dispatcher, the 911 clerk receives information from a citizen and then enters the information that's related to the dispatcher or 911 clerk, correct?
Correct.
All right, can you read this first entry from this line to this line?
Address 6200 Old Pearsall Road, Building 2, Rosemont at Miller's Pond Apartments. Medium location per E36 POC for maintenance department at this complex is Kenji Uno and can be reached at 210-803-3244. C advised Latin female, white bandana, white muscle shirt, and blue jeans, cut fire alarm wire, and saying she owns all complex, no weapons, possible intox. C states SP arguing with other tenants in complex. SP lives apartment 3102. C advised SP cut fire alarm wire in building 2 and alarm is going off.
All right, thank you so much. Now, Ms. Flores, let's go back to the first page of Defendant's Exhibit 1. When it says alarm level, what does it say here on this page?
Disturbance.
And when it says, okay, I struggle with this testimony because the person they should really, she's just the keeper of records. She just says, I received the record this date, this time, and who accessed it. That's it. What he's going through there, I believe, should be the dispatcher needs to be validating this, not her. She didn't create the record. She's just the keeper of records. She can tell them that, hey, it was signed out on this date by this attorney or by that police officer or detective or whomever. So I'm kind of confused why he's questioning her like she is the dispatcher who created the record.
Response plan, what does it say?
Response plan. 6340 routine.
All right. Now, are you aware that there are different levels of response by the San Antonio Police Department that are indicated on a IDR or incident detail report?
Yes.
And are they categorized according to urgency?
Yes.
And the response plan, is there a thing called mental health in progress?
Yes.
All right. And so is a mental health in progress something that the dispatcher can enter so that everyone responding to this call would know that the police officers on scene are dealing with someone with a mental health issue?
Yes.
All right. And that's required by policy to upgrade the IDR. The dispatcher must upgrade the IDR, or the officer on scene who recognizes a mental health problem notify the dispatcher so the dispatcher can upgrade the IDR.
I do not know.
Okay. Well, fair enough, but would you agree that there's no indication, and it looks like there's 26 pages here, is there any indication on those 26 pages that Officer Rojas, Ramos, or Salinas notified the dispatcher to upgrade this call to a mental health in progress?
I don't know. I'd have to go through everything and look.
So let me see if we can save each other some time. Would you agree with me that if they had notified someone that the response plan would say mental health in progress?
Yes, if that was the initial report on the call, I believe that's when it's updated.
Okay, and they could update it at any time, right?
Yes.
And if they updated it, it would be on this document, right?
Correct.
And if a disturbance is a low priority call, correct?
Yes.
All right. But a mental health call is a higher priority call, correct?
Yes.
And do you know what MedCom is?
No, I do not.
Can you look through the dispatch log whether MedCom was ever added to the call?
I mean, thought I read it. I would have to read this whole thing.
Well,
I do not know off the top of my head. I'd have to read everything.
Okay.
So I can testify that the record is true and correct. I don't read and I don't evaluate everything before I come to court. I can just testify it's a correct copy.
That's fair. That's fair. And I understand that. But did the prosecutors ever ask you to look through this to see if MedCom was added to the call at any time?
Did they ask me? No.
Okay. And if adding MedCom to the call was something that's relevant to this case, would you have wanted to be aware of that so you could search?
Objection, Your Honor. Again, Ms. Flores is just the keeper of the record. She does not generate the input which the records document. The question specifically asks whether or not it would be, that information would be something she would be interested to search for.
No.
She's not the searcher of it. She is the keeper of the documentation. She does not input it.
Counsel misunderstands my question. My question is, did the prosecution ever ask her to look whether Medcom was in this record? That's different from whether,
But the question was, and if adding Medcom to the call was something that's relevant to this case, would you have wanted to be aware of that so you could search? Oh, sustain the objection.
did the prosecution ever ask you to look for Medcom on this document?
No.
All right. So, I want to make sure that all of the body cameras that we had initially requested under the rule of optional completeness be admitted, and we're also asking for all the body-worn camera audit trails that the state has provided to us be admitted, and we can put those together as a group exhibit at a later time and have them admitted.
Okay. Any response to that at all?
I believe he also previously stipulated there were
I'm thinking about the mechanics thereof, Your Honor. This is all information that is already provided to the parties. Ms. Flores has already testified that it was authentic what she provided us, which I gave to defense. I think it would be a waste of her time to ask her to reproduce in hard form media all that information again. I think we may be able just to agree to put it out there on, but and I want to make sure I'm understanding. We're saying that all of it that you asked for is admitted, everything.
I want to be absolutely clear that every permutation of an audit trail, including a user audit trail, of specific people, including the chief of police, the assistant chief, the deputy chief, Van Geffen, Captain Van Geffen, Lieutenant Frisky, and Sergeant Galindo Villanueva be admitted on this case.
And my question was as to the media and how we bring it to the court for admissibility. Do we want to use digital, or do you want to produce individual discs of every body cam and those audit
I will
trails?
print out the PDF files that were produced.
The production of all this said evidence should have happened before the trial even went to jury selection. You should already have all this in evidence on a PDF thumb drive or in some format, whether it's printed, whatever format you wanted it in. She is only the keeper of records. Why you were doing this, I do not know. Her job is just to validate that the records that she has turned over to the prosecution, defense, or those who've requested the records, or whatever those records were, are true and authentic and were saved and held appropriately in a discussion.
To us digitally and have the hard copies admitted as an exhibit, and I'd ask that a sticker be reserved for defendant's exhibit number 2.
And with that, Your Honor, as I'm trying not to put the burden on Ms. Flores to produce all of that again herself, when the custom now is that it is moved between the parties digitally. That's the only basis of my question, and if counsel produces it and it looks like what we've given him, the state will agree. And it's my understanding that all of it, everybody can.
So she produces the evidence to the state copies that said documentation. The state goes to the police department, for example. They say, we need all body cams for all these officers that were involved. They list the name, the date, the time, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. She gets all of that information, saves it to thumb drives or hard disk or whatever format that he requested. And then he goes and copies that information and hands it to the defense. Now, I'm sure the defense can go to her and get their own copy. But my point is that this all should have been dealt with before trial. Even this is a pre-trial issue.
Both sides want all of it admitted.
So, to make sure that there's no misunderstanding and no doubt, we will ask that the hard copy be marked 2A and the digital copy and a thumb drive be marked 2B. And if, for whatever reason, the state disagrees with the hard copy, we'll agree that 2B, the digital version, controls.
And Your Honor, again, I'm not trying to be obstructionist, and it sounds like we have an agreement in concept and spirit, and once we have it produced, both sides look at it, I'm sure the state will agree.
All right, that sounds good.
That's Lewis.
There you go, one.
I forgot.
That person we discussed?
Yes.
Hi, Flores. My name is Tom. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I just want to ask you a few questions about this Defense Exhibit 1 that we were just talking about, okay?
Okay.
I think you're right. I think they want her to do all the work for them, and that's not her job.
I think we know, but the jury doesn't know, so I just want to tell them, when you were reading these sections here, like C, advised, female, white bandana, what does C stand for?
Complainant.
Okay, that's the person who's calling on the 911 call to make that complaint?
Yes.
Okay, and then that acronym SP, okay? C states SP is arguing with other tenants in the complex. What does SP stand for?
Suspect.
Okay, so the person on the phone call is the caller or the complainant, and then the SP that they're referring to with that behavior is the suspect.
That's correct.
All right. Here on the first page, does Defense Exhibit 1 show who the C or the caller was?
Yes.
Is it right here next to caller name?
Yes.
Okay, and what's that name?
Marianne.
Okay, and if I told you that's Marianne Delgado, would her 911 call have been kept in the same course of regular business that the predicate the state laid and we agreed to earlier?
Yes.
Objection to the question as counsel read it. The name on the IDR lists Marianne. There is no Delgado. Outside scope, again, is she didn't take the call. She only preserves the document after the call is taken.
Oh, you can rephrase.
Okay, the caller's name is Marianne.
Correct.
Okay, now I'm going to show you what has been marked as it's kind of like Gilligan's Island. Remember Marianne on that one? Okay, I'm going to show you Defense Exhibit 3, and I'm going to tell you that's a flash drive, and it has a 911 call from Marianne from this incident on the night in question, okay?
Okay.
The first question I have for you is, did you bring with you, at the state's request, any of the 911 calls from that night?
No.
Okay. If you keep and maintain those 911 calls in the regular course of business, that would be the 911 call that pertains to this call on the night in question?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to object.
Well, I'll just ask the question, Judge. They provided the
thumb drive itself has not been validated. She's not looked at it, and she's not said, this is the thumb drive I provided. Therefore, with this thumb drive, at the time that I provided the information was correct, true, and accurate. He just put, that thumb drive could be blank. Nobody knows what's on that thumb drive. She has not been able to put it in a computer and validate that thumb drive. So she can't testify to what he's asking her to testify, because heck, that could have been a blank thumb drive that he bought for 50 cents.
They provided the 911 call in discovery. It doesn't look like they're offering it. I put it on this flash drive. I'd like to offer it. This witness lays the predicate. She needs to listen to it to authenticate it or something. We could do that outside the presence of the jury, but in the name of judicial efficiency, or if the state wants.
That is not her job. She did not take that 911 call. That needs to be your dispatcher. Your dispatcher needs to be sitting in that chair, listening to that call and say, yes, that is my voice. Yes, I took that call. Yes, this is the call. She doesn't know this. She wasn't there. She just says that record was saved to the hard drive that's in my office at this time, and it's been accessed this many times by whom? Period. And it
Wants to listen to it, that's fine too. This is Mary Ann's 911 call. I want the jury to listen to it, and I'd like to admit it into evidence. I'm just trying to make this quick.
Which, Your Honor, again, this is a follow-on with what we've already agreed to with counsel with Mr. Cifuentes. I am sure we may very well get there. All I'm saying is Ms. Flores can testify to the authenticity of what she maintains, not something someone else hands her. And so it's improper to do it with this witness. I think if we had the time for the agreement we reached, all sides would be happy because ultimately we want the evidence in.
All right, so this flash drive contains the same information that you've already agreed to with the other counsel?
It may. I'm simply saying this witness is not the proper witness to try to authenticate it and publish it. We just spent a lot of time asking for all of this stuff. Once we can get it and mark it, it'll be into the court and both parties can use it. But to do all of this with just the keeper of the records is improper. It is asking her to comment on something she didn't create, doesn't know where it came from, etc. That's all I'm saying.
Do you have states 1, 2, and 3? Judge, my response is they asked her to mark these records she keeps in the regular course of business and admit them into evidence. This is the exact same. It just has a blue sticker on it, and that's apparently a big issue now. I'm asking for the same predicate and the same treatment. She can listen to it if she wants. The state can listen to it if they want. But this is the call that she maintains in the regular course of business. Once that hurdle is authenticated, it can be admitted in the exact same way these ones were, and that's what I would like to do.
Now respond, Your Honor.
Yes.
Specifically, when I voir dired this witness, I asked her, did I ask you to make copies of these body camera footage and bring them to court today? And she said, yes, these are the ones that I recorded. That is different from what counsel is walking up to her and handling her. I am not impugning anybody's credibility. I am simply saying her knowledge is limited to what she maintains. She's already testified. She provided it to my office. Counsel has raised that we gave it to them. She's improper for what Mr. Nesbitt is trying to do now. That's my only objection. She's not the witness to authenticate what he has.
All right, so I understand the objection related to the authentication issue. However, if she can authenticate it after viewing it, or observing it, or listening to it, whatever the case may be, then I'll allow that. So do we need to let the jury out of the courtroom, or?
Well, another question. I have one other. If I may take the witness on voir dire.
Yes.
Well, Judge, he doesn't need to. She's not going to be able to authenticate the contents of that. I guess I'm just missing the nexus here. If we're accepting the testimony that the records she gave the state are the records she maintains, and Mr. Harris is an officer of the court, is now representing to the court the records they then gave us in discovery are the same records she just testified she keeps and maintains. What am I missing here? Right? If I just then put it onto a small plastic stick to put it in the same as those discs, what is different? Unless I'm being accused of doing a switcheroo on what's on this, and that's why I'm saying the state can listen to it if they want. I just want to put that 911 call in.
Your Honor, the difference is she testified to the court of what she personally did, what she personally produced and tendered to the court.
It's for judicial efficiency. I recognize what Mr. Harris is saying, but because I didn't get that chance to say, can you please bring Mary Ann's call too, please? I'm trying to do this for judicial efficiency. The predicate is there. It's the same as those discs. It's just the color of the sticker is different.
All right, so if the state wants, we can have this witness return early in this trial to produce what counsel's requesting, or we can figure out some other way.
Well, and again, Your Honor, I believe we've already covered that. If these parties can get together on the existing evidence as Mr. Cifuentes raised, and we will mark it all, then we will have it. But again, Ms. Flores is not the individual keeper of everything. She is the authenticator of it. That is my only point.
Okay, so then we all agree to have the same agreement that you have with Mr. Cifuentes.
Yes, Judge, I'm simply now asking for the time to actually bring it into fruition
Yes.
so we can.
Okay, then I will allow that.
Your Honor, send the jury out for their break and let them argue this in private. This arguing does not need to be happening in front of the jury. Your Honor, I want to get the screaming pickle to work. But y'all can't hear that, supposedly. I'm getting really irritated. I'm about ready to go code red on these two.
Okay.
Like lawyering 101 here. This is fundamental crap.
Okay. And just going back here, just to go back to our C's and SP's. C, that's the caller. What's ADV mean? Is it advises?
I would think so, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
Okay. C, ADV advises, SP cut fire alarm wire in building 2 and alarm is going off. That's what that reads?
Yes.
Thank you. Judge, we're going to offer Defense Exhibit 1 into evidence at this time. Oh, it's already admitted? Okay, Judge. Then we'd have to publish it to the jury.
You can do that.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
I have no further questions, Ms. Flores.
Thank you.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, has the rule been explained to you?
I'm sorry?
The rule has been invoked, you know what that means?
No.
It means you're not allowed to talk to anybody else about your testimony in this case, other than the lawyers, until we know that you're no longer going to be a part of the trial.
Understood.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your Honor, just to note, we might be here subject to recall.
All right, so you are subject to recall.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody okay on the jury? State, you can call your next witness.
The state calls Captain Christopher Hudson.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
All right, you may need to adjust the microphone, make sure everybody can hear you. Can you introduce yourself to the jury and spell your name for the court reporter, please?
My name is Christopher Hudson. It's CHRISTOPHERHUDSON. I'm a captain with San Antonio Fire Department.
Next day.
Captain Hudson, how long have you worked for the San Antonio Fire Department?
For 20 years.
And what's your current role with San Antonio Fire Department?
Right now, I'm in an admin role. I help, I'm the workers' comp captain. I help our employees that are injured on the job get through their claims.
And so I want to take you back to June 22nd going into June 23rd of 2023. What was your role back then?
I was a lieutenant in the field in fire, and on that night I was at Engine 36.
And I want to talk a little bit about your training in becoming a San Antonio firefighter. What type of training did you receive?
We went through a 6-month academy. We learned everything from pumping water, different hoses, different types of fires. We had a 6-week EMT basic course during the academy. Just everything related to firefighting.
And on the night of June 22nd going into June 23rd of 2023, well, what type of shift were you working?
I was working the overtime shift that day, so on the 21st, I worked my regular shift at Station 8. I got off the morning of the 22nd, and I went to Engine 36 to work 24 more hours, so I was on a 48-hour shift.
And Engine 36, where was that station located?
It's over on Ray Ellison, just inside of 410.
And on what side of town, just for those unfamiliar with that?
I used to live off of Ray Ellison.
Southwest side.
And is that station located within Bexar County?
Yes, sir.
And I want to ask, so whenever you respond to calls from that station, what's your range? What calls are you responding to within a certain area?
What types of calls?
Sure.
Everything, medical calls, smoke investigations, any kind of fires, dumpster fires, car fires, house fires, site calls, person down, you name it. Somebody calls 911 for anything medical or fire related, we go.
And in the late hours of June 22nd of 2023, did you respond to a call at the Rosemont Apartments?
Yes, sir.
And are the Rosemont Apartments, are those located in Bexar County?
Yes, sir.
And around what time did you arrive at those apartments?
Around 11:30.
And what was the call for?
It was for a fire alarm. It was for a fire alarm, and the notes that we had said there was a female cutting the wires to the fire alarms.
Did you get a description of this female?
Yeah, it said white tank top, blue jeans, and a white bandana.
And when you arrived at the apartments, did you see anyone matching that description immediately upon arriving?
No, sir, not initially.
Were people out around the parking? Around
Yeah,
the
people
apartment?
had evacuated the building. Probably 20 to 30 people, I guess.
And when you arrived at the apartments, was the alarm still going?
Yes, sir.
What was involved with the alarm? Just describe for the jury.
Just a typical fire alarm. I mean, it's real loud and it's intermittent bursts of noise. I don't know.
And when you respond to a call, typically for an alarm going off, what steps do you take as a firefighter?
First, make sure there is no smoke or fire, right? We usually send a guy around, like this was an apartment building, so send somebody around to look for any smoke or fire. We weren't too concerned about this one, but you still do it because we had the note saying somebody was cutting the alarms, and we go check the panel. The panel will tell us usually what zone it is, or if it's a smoke detector, what room. So we did that.
And when you went to the panel, did you notice anything about the panel?
Yeah, you could tell that the wires had been cut or pulled out or had been tampered with.
Were you able to stop the alarm?
We were able to silence the alarm, but we couldn't reset the panel because of the wires being
Well,
tampered
you're responding to an apartment complex. Did you attempt to contact anyone at the apartment complex?
Yeah, I called after we got there and I checked out the panel. And we silenced it. I called the on our notes that we have on the way to the run. It has the apartment, like a building maintenance guy usually, and they did have one this time. So I called him. He initially didn't answer, so I called the number of the fire alarm company that's on the panel, and they answered and let them know what was going on.
And did you end up reporting what you had seen to the San Antonio Police Department?
Yeah, I called PD on I called our dispatch on the radio, fire's dispatch, and had them add PD for the vandalism.
And did you wait for SAPD to show up at the scene?
Yes, sir.
And how long did it take the San Antonio Police Department to arrive?
Approximately 45 minutes.
And while you were waiting for the San Antonio Police Department to arrive, did you end up speaking to anyone at the apartment complex?
Yes, we were sitting in the cab waiting for PD, and we saw, well, one of my guys saw a lady matching that description run out with a dog. So I tried to get a picture of her with the city cell phone, but she had ran away too fast. It was dark, so when she came back, I tried to get another picture, but I couldn't initially.
Did you end up speaking with her?
Yes, sir. So I got out, and the notes had said that, or the note said, or a bystander had told me that she claimed to own the building. So I used that as a conversation starter. I got out and asked her if she owned the building. She said she did, and I asked her if she was working on the fire alarm panel, and then that's when she started admitting to cutting the wires.
And now, when you're approaching her, did she have any sort of weapon in her possession that you could see?
Not that I could see, no.
And while you were speaking with her, did she ever display a weapon?
No, sir.
Did she ever threaten you?
No, sir.
And how many other firefighters were there with you?
3 others.
And did all of you get down and talk to her?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you spoke with her, what was her demeanor?
She was talkative. She was very open about what she did. She was a little delusional. She did it because she thought somebody was spying on her through the alarm system, but she was willing to talk about it. She would get a little agitated from time to time. When she did, she had her dog with her, and I would ask her about her dog, and she would calm down, start talking about her dog, but it kind of went like that, where she would work herself up. I'd calm her down. She'd work herself up, calm her down, but pretty, friendly conversation the whole time.
And, again, you've been a firefighter for 20 years?
Yes, sir.
20 plus?
In this department, yes.
So, you've had to respond to mental health calls?
Yep.
Frequently or not so frequently?
We get calls for psychs pretty frequently. A lot of times we get calls for other things that turn into, I'm not calling them psychs, that's just what they're labeled as our problem type. So sometimes we'll get the regular calls for, say, a diabetic. It ends up being a psych call as well. But yeah, pretty regularly.
Now, you're not a trained psychiatrist, are you?
No, sir.
So you can't diagnose anyone with any sort of mental illness?
No, sir.
But you can make observations.
Right.
And you described to the jury, what did this woman talk about whenever you were speaking with her?
She talked about, like I said, the fire alarm, being spied on through the fire alarm by the FBI. She also said she worked for the FBI. She said she worked for the cartel. She said she was Elvis Presley's daughter. She said she had been drugged. A few years before this incident, she had been drugged by somebody and kept unconscious for months. And she thought she had been impregnated and gave birth, but she wasn't sure. And then she, talked about her family, like I said, but she was kind of all over the place.
And was this the first time you'd ever spoken with this woman?
Yes, sir.
Did she ever end up telling you her name?
I can't remember if I knew her name that night, or I probably did, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
Fair enough. Now, SAPD arrived at the scene, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How many officers initially arrived?
Initially, I believe it was just the one car right off the bat. One officer.
Did you end up speaking to that officer?
Yes.
And did you briefly describe maybe your experience with this woman?
Yeah, I just said that she seemed to be having some psychiatric issues, or she was under the influence maybe, or both. I wasn't sure. Because she had told me in her past she had psych issues and had drug issues. So.
And now you were able to speak with her again for quite a bit of time.
Right. About 45 minutes.
Now, as a part of your training as a paramedic and as a firefighter, do you have to make observations about people?
Yeah.
What sort of observations do you make?
We try to assess their, we call it A&O, their alert and orientation. So she didn't seem to be a threat to me, right? She knew where she was. Like person, place, time, and event are the 4 things we look for. Like she knew who she was. She knew where she was at. She knew I don't remember the exact question I asked her, but I usually ask, you know what day of the week it is or what year it is, so she knew what time it was and she knew the event. She knew why we were there and what she was doing.
And so, is there a sort of scale that you have whenever talking about those observations?
No, you could be alert and oriented at 0 if you don't know anything, and that's a problem. You know, she was all 4. Obviously, she had some delusions, but I thought were delusions, but no, I don't know. What are you asking?
So was she alert and able to communicate with you?
She was, yeah.
Okay. And again, you told all this to the San Antonio, or you at least told as much as you could to the police officer, is that correct?
I think all I mentioned was about the, like I said, that she was having some psych issues and possibly into influence or both, and then I let them know about the panel, the fire alarm panel.
Did you end up showing them the panel?
I did, yeah.
And were you present whenever the officer began to speak with this woman?
Yes.
Okay. And you had recorded video of what she had said earlier, is that correct?
That's correct.
And why did you record that video?
Just in case, just to get her on tape admitting that she had cut the alarm panel. I mean, I thought it was just going to be a simple vandalism call. I initially took a couple pictures of her with the phone in case she ran off, because like I said, I've never met her, I don't know her. She admitted to me about cutting the wires, so I kind of started the video and asked her, okay, so, you know, I kind of let her into it again, like, so what were you saying you did? You know, just to get her to admit it.
Now, Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what I'm marking as State Exhibit number 4. Do you know what this is?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Excuse me, it says 4, there's, States 4 has already been marked with,
It's 5.
5, sorry, thank you. States 5. What is States 5?
This is the video that I recorded with the phone.
And
Judge, just to say, Todd, we agree that it should be admitted, and we'll stick with it.
All right, you moving to admit it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, it's admitted.
And so you've taken the time to watch, you were the one that recorded the video on this disc, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to publish?
Yes.
Your Honor, can we have a second just to deal with that audio issue?
Yes.
Will we be able to do that outside the presence of the jury, Your Honor? Does that mean we need something to come down and figure out?
Members of the jury, I'm going to give you a quick break. We'll let you know when we're ready.
All right, for the jury.
Are you cutting the wires again? You're trying to fix it, or?
No, stand down, baby girl. It's not trying to fix the wiring.
Yeah.
It's when I've already gone around the complex and investigated, and then you see a whole bunch of wires coming through the building and the plugs.
Right.
And then I found 14 batteries that were not connected.
Oh.
So what they were gonna do is they were gonna connect all the wirings to the mishap to the rest people.
So what did you do with the wires that you cut? Did you take some?
I didn't take them. Those are wires. No, those are wires from the last time that I was
So you
investigating.
just cut these in half?
I just cut them up. I'm gonna tell you something. I went into my complex and they were quiet.
Oh, because you cut the wires?
Yeah, because I've been.
And so, Captain Hudson, so that was the video that you recorded of the woman that you spoke to at that scene. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Yeah.
And not long after this, San Antonio police arrived.
Correct.
And I believe you stated earlier you told the officer about kind of what your interaction with the woman had been. Is that correct?
Yeah, not too many specifics, just, yeah. That she had cut the wires, admitted cutting the wires, and that she had some psych issues.
And you were present whenever that officer spoke with her. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were there, just a little bit, maybe a few feet away, in our own little group.
And was this woman, was she willing to speak with that officer?
She wasn't as open with him as she was with us.
But she was still communicating with him, is that correct?
Yeah, she had conversation with him, yeah.
And were you involved in the conversation much?
No, not at all, that I can remember.
Now, at some point, did they walk away from you?
Yeah, I heard him ask her to follow him, I think back to his car, and then the second officer arrived and they said that they got it, that we can leave. And they started to walk her back to the car, I believe, and then one of my guys said, "Oh, she took off." And so I turned around and looked, and I saw one or both cops chasing. She was already out of my view, around the corner of the building.
Now, where did she run off to?
Inside her apartment.
Now, did you ever go towards the entrance of her apartment?
Yeah, I went to check on the officers to make sure they were okay, that there wasn't a fight going on, and I got over there and I saw one of the officers knocking on the door, and the other one was further back, and they were trying to get her to open the door.
And how much longer did you stay at the scene?
That was it. We just checked on them, and they said they were good, and we left.
Now, again, you spoke with this woman for quite a bit of time, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, have you ever had to deal with intoxicated individuals before?
Yes.
From drugs or alcohol?
Both, yes, sir.
Now, you had the time to make observations about this woman, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, did you see any indications that she was intoxicated due to alcohol?
No.
Did you smell alcohol on her breath?
No, sir.
Was she slurring her words?
No, sir.
What did you think was occurring at the scene?
Just from what she had told me, like I said, her history of drug use and the psychiatric issues, I contributed to both of those. One or the other or both, I wasn't sure. Like, I didn't have a baseline for her, right? I don't know her, so I don't know how she acts normally, so I didn't know if how she was acting was her normal, was her baseline, or not. It didn't seem to be a normal baseline to me. But
Now, during the time that you were at the scene, was anyone taken to the hospital?
No, sir.
Was anyone needing emergency aid?
No, sir.
Were you aware, were other people living in the home with this woman?
She had mentioned that she was taking care of an elderly man in a wheelchair.
Did you ever go to check on him?
No, sir.
Was there any sort of threat that she mentioned towards him?
No, sir.
I'm gonna pass the witness.
That was the department's cell phone. So he claims that was his department cell.
Hi, Captain Hudson.
How's it going?
My name's Jason Goss. I represent all three of these officers, Keep on the Hood. I guess first of all, congratulations on your promotion.
Thanks.
Yeah. I want to talk and just kind of get started on that night. So I want to.
He's like, I miss being on the truck. I don't like being a pencil pusher. This is not a true promotion.
Talk about a fire alarm, like the fire alarm that you saw that night, right? The fire alarm you were dealing with. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what's the purpose of it?
The purpose of our response, or the alarm?
Purpose of the fire alarm?
Just to notify the residents of potential smoke or fire in the building.
Right. And so an alarm like that, and you talked about residents. Could you kind of see how big this apartment complex area was?
I mean, I've dealt with that one building. I wasn't familiar with that complex, but the building maybe had, I don't want to lie, but maybe 8 to 12 units.
Okay.
It wasn't too big of a building.
So the building had 8 to 12 units, and did that fire alarm box, did that work just for that building? With
just for
units?
that, yeah, just for that building.
Other buildings had other individual fire alarm boxes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 8 to 12 units. You have and I guess you wouldn't know if all the units were filled or not.
Right.
But if they were filled with families and everything else, you're talking about dozens of people.
I'm going to object to speculation.
Not speculation. But if they were, you're talking about dozens of people, if they were.
Correct.
All right. Now, this fire alarm system, because one of the things the prosecution didn't really go into with you is like what cutting the wires does to it. So what wires were cut specifically, and what did that do to the system?
Well, I'm not a alarm tech, right? It's the wires coming out of the wall, presumably through all the detectors or whatever kind of, or sprinkler, whatever is connected to that alarm coming into the panel.
I'm going to object to this testimony. It's outside of his expertise. He said he didn't know the system.
Well, all I'm asking, he has to go and check the system. All I'm asking is his basic knowledge. I'm not asking anything more than that.
All right, you can rephrase.
Okay, so, I mean, because you were a lieutenant at the time, captain now, I mean, when something like that goes off, and that's happened before, right?
Right.
And when something like that goes off, you were one of the people at that time that would respond to it.
Right.
Right. And one of the things you would do is you check these boxes frequently.
Right.
How many boxes do you think you've checked in your career?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. And so I'm not asking necessarily if you're like an alarm tech that can tell me exactly, but just the basics that you would have for your job to understand like what is wrong, try to do a diagnostic, and try to evaluate what the problem is. You have that knowledge.
Yeah, rudimentary, right?
Rudimentary, right. And really that comes from your experience. You've been looking at all these boxes, hundreds of boxes of your career.
Correct.
Okay. So that's really all I'm asking. You know that that box, and the purpose of that box is to, as you said, sprinkler systems. That's what usually is connected to that box, right?
Could be, yeah.
And sprinkler system is a form of fire suppression. So if a fire starts and it's detected, the sprinkler system would try to suppress that fire.
Correct.
All right. And also you said it says like warning, like it serves as a warning to the residents of the apartment complex that there is a fire.
Yeah, potential.
A potential fire.
Correct.
And as a firefighter, I guess are you also a paramedic or EMT?
Paramedic, yeah.
Paramedic. And that's pretty common with, I guess, all firefighters?
Everybody's in the department is at least EMT basic.
Okay, so, and an EMT, what does that stand for?
Emergency medical technician.
And the difference is you would ride on an engine, and then maybe some who just specialize paramedics would maybe ride on an ambulance.
Right, it's rank specific for our department.
Okay.
Engineers are on the ambulance.
All right, so have you ridden on both?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I guess what I want to get to is that so you know that this box is important as a warning sign and a potential fire suppression system for the people that live in that complex.
Correct.
And because if it wasn't important, it wouldn't be there.
Right.
Do you know, in your experience in going out there, these apartment complexes, do most of them have some kind of system like this?
Pretty much all of them, yeah.
Right. Because in this day and age, being able to have that technology, it would be incredibly foolish to put a bunch of people together and have them all living next to each other and not have a system such as this.
Correct.
All right. So when you went out, and I think what you said is that the woman that you encountered had cut the wires, or she told you she had cut the wires on the box.
Right.
And you said, they were asking you about the fire alarm sound. So cutting the wires itself, does that cause the system to go off?
You can.
All right. And did it go off in this situation?
It did.
Okay. And you kind of said it was real loud, intermittent burst of noise, but like, is that something that everybody can hear?
Everybody in that building, yeah.
Would that have been going off in their apartments?
Yes.
Okay. So when that happened at 11:30 at night, on that night, everybody who lived in those apartments was hearing an alarm go off.
Should have been, yes.
Should have been, because you could hear it.
Yeah.
And were people coming outside in response to that alarm?
Yeah, when we got there, it was, I don't know if it was everybody, but a lot of people had evacuated into the front of the building parking lot.
So they all had to evacuate at 11:30 at night?
Right.
Right. Presumably some were asleep at 11:30 at night and had to wake up and get their kids and their dogs and whatever else and go outside.
Sure.
Okay. So the, and then he said you were able to, and I appreciate that you did this. Even though you were coming and assumed that it probably wasn't a fire, you still checked to make sure.
Right.
And one of the things you check is, because you have a fire alarm that goes off, or maybe a fire in one building, but as you know, depending on wind conditions and everything else, this is your expertise, but depending on wind conditions, everything else, a fire here can jump somewhere.
Right, correct.
And in apartment buildings, that can happen. It frequently has happened.
Right.
So building to building to building to building, unless hopefully somebody like you and the people that do your job come and suppress that fire or stop it from spreading.
Right.
Okay. So you said you were able to silence the alarm, but couldn't reset the panel because of the wires.
Correct.
Okay, so how were you able to silence the alarm?
There's just a silence button on the panel that you can hit to, like, once you've made sure there isn't anything, you can silence it for the residents. They can start going back in.
Right.
And then we can talk to each other on the radios because we don't have that loud alarm going off while we try to diagnose the problem.
Yes, I mean, you would say that alarm was so loud that it kind of prevents you from being able to talk without screaming.
Right.
Right. So you silenced it. So now you've hit the button to silence the alarm. Okay, it's not a fire. Everybody go inside. But you couldn't reset the panel. What does that mean?
When you hit the reset button, it's going to run a check through the whole system from beginning to end, right, and make sure everything's connected right. And no circuits are broken, whether it be a smoke detector, CO detector, water flow valve, or water flow alarm for sprinklers, that everything's working properly. Maybe it was just a malfunction real quick. Something could have happened that tripped it. So when you hit reset, it runs that check through the system, and then it'll reset if everything's fine.
Right. And so you said that was impossible in this case because the wires had been damaged or cut to the point where you could not check if everything was fine.
Right.
So for all you know, the suppression and the warning or alert system was not functioning.
I'm going to object to outside of his knowledge. That's speculation.
That's not speculation. He couldn't do the reset, which he said that's how he knows that it's working properly.
Oh, it's the only answer if you know.
Okay.
Continue.
Right. You would know, since you can't do the reset, since the wires have been cut, if all of those things are working properly.
Right, I guess.
I mean, because that's what the reset button is for.
Right.
And I guess, is there on the panel, is there something that would tell you, thumbs up, everything's working well now?
On most panels, not all of them have a readout, but most of them do. It'll say system reset or system normal.
Okay. Did you remember if this one did or not?
I don't remember.
Did you check to see if the battery, is there also batteries that are in these types of panels?
There are.
And what are those for?
Backups, I guess. If they lose power to the building, the panel will still have power and the system will still have power. But a lot of times they get new batteries get put in, and the alarm companies or whoever changes them out just leaves them, and there'll be extra batteries.
Okay. So they'll put a new battery in and then they'll change them out and they'll leave, you say leave them, like the old battery?
Right.
Okay.
Not all the time, but sometimes.
Okay. Now, I guess you never went into her apartment.
No.
Okay, so you never saw whether or not she had taken the batteries out of that?
No, sir.
If you're not able, if the reset wouldn't work, because it sounds like, by the way that you described the circuitry, is that everything is connected as a unit. And if there's a problem in the unit, the problem in the circuitry and the wires that connects to the suppression and the alarm, there's an issue going through and it's cut, then it can cut off the communication to the different units in this building.
Yeah, that's how I understand it.
Right.
Like say a pull station, somebody pulled a pull station, the pull here for fire.
Right.
And it's activated, you can't reset it because it won't get past that, right?
Right.
You have to reset that and then it completes that's how I understand.
Completes the circuit. And in this case, from what you know and what you understood, is that it was incapable of being reset because of the damage to the wires.
Correct.
And you know Melissa Perez damaged those wires.
That's what she told me, yes.
Right. And you, based on everything that you had there at the scene, you pretty certain that she was the person. That's why you recorded her.
Right.
And that's why you continue to try to get her. You continue to try to get her on video saying, I'm the one that cut these wires, because you thought it might be important for like a criminal mischief prosecution or to account for the damage.
Correct.
Now, do you know if these units are expensive or cheap?
No idea.
Okay. So if that system is incapacitated, and then you say, well, we've silenced the alarm, so the alarm's not going off anymore. And you leave, and somebody starts a fire in one of those units. If that system is incapacitated, it would not be able to alert the residents or suppress the fire. You would agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree.
Until somebody can come and fix it.
Correct.
And nobody was able to fix it right then.
No, the alarm company knew. I called them, so I couldn't get a hold of maintenance. So I called the alarm company, and they said they would pass on the information to somebody. And then when we got ready to leave, the maintenance guy called me back. Or I had a missed call maybe and called him. Either way, I talked to him, and he said he'd be on the way to fix it.
Okay.
And then when I got back to the station, he had called again, or I think that's when I had the missed call. I called him back, and he said he couldn't get there till morning.
Right.
But
okay, so now that we're here, if the maintenance guy can't get there till the next day, and a person has cut the fire alarm box and system, it cannot be reset. It cannot suppress, and it cannot warn. Wouldn't you agree that that's a high risk for if there was an arson or somebody wanted to set a fire, that would be a high risk to everybody else in that apartment complex?
Yeah, I'm going to object to speculation.
What?
overruled.
As a fire captain, wouldn't you agree that if all of those things have happened, the maintenance guy says, I can't get out there till tomorrow. We're talking about midnight.
Right.
So that's 8 hours that if a fire starts in one of those units, can spread to the other units without any warning to any of the residents in those units.
I guess, are you asking if it's high risk that arson will occur, or high risk that if it does occur, a lot of damage is going to happen?
That's
lives lost. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and we know that because all of those fail safes that we have to say, look, even if a fire accidentally or intentionally is started, even if it's accidental or intentional, we have all these fail safes that say, warn everybody else who's in that area to get them to safety, right?
Right.
But if this is incapacitated and the maintenance guy can't fix it till the next day, people can't be warned if there is a fire.
Right, not by that system, correct.
Not by that system. They'd be warned by their smell, their sight, their hearing, maybe. But as you also know, with fires that start during the day when everybody is awake, they're more able to have an early warning because they're conscious, right?
Correct.
Fires that start at 3 in the morning when everybody's asleep, they're less able to have those other warning signs that a human being would have for fire because they're unconscious, right?
Correct.
Right. And so, if this person, did you see in her apartment that she had lit candles all over the place?
No, like I said, I didn't see her apartment.
Okay. You know that as a fire captain, and with your years of experience, you know that open flame and lit candles in an apartment is a risk for fire.
I mean, it can be, I guess, but it's a candle.
It's just a candle. But have you responded to fires? Have you had to put out, like, a house almost being burned down because somebody had a candle in the wrong place?
I can't say that I have or haven't. I usually don't find out the cause. That's arson's job.
That's right, because you're not an arson investigator.
Correct.
But I guess any open flame would be the cause, would be the cause of a fire.
Correct.
And having multiple open flames, more than one open flame, whatever the risk is of an open flame causing the fire, that risk goes up. You would agree with that?
I'd agree.
Yes, because if I have one candle, or if I have 5, or if I have 10, or if I have 20, right? It's just, there's more open flames, so more ability for one of those flames to start a fire. Okay, so if, in the situation that I described, for you, would that be, can you see how those residents of that unit had more risk because of the actions of Melissa Perez? Had more risk of being harmed than maybe some others whose fire suppression and fire warning systems were working properly?
I'd agree, more risk, yeah.
Right. And I think you would agree that anyone who didn't have a working fire suppression and fire alert system would be at more risk.
Yeah, I would.
Right. But in this particular case, they were all at more risk because Melissa Perez cut the wires to this box. Right?
Right.
Okay. So now, and I like what you did here. Like you heard that she had said that she owned the building, and so you kind of said, hey, you're the building owner, to talk to her. I'll just say I think it was smart. And so you go in and you talk to her. You said she was open about what she did, and she had what you thought were delusions.
Right.
About somebody spying on her through the system or something like that.
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, obviously you can't diagnose, mental health or anything else, but do you know generally that delusions are a symptom of schizophrenia, for instance?
They can be, yeah.
Yeah. So, as far as you and your role, police officers, when people see police officers, sometimes they're there to help, but sometimes they're also there to arrest or detain or question or search, and maybe people can get in trouble, right? Okay, so firefighters, on the other hand, there's some people that have a dislike of firefighters, but you would agree that most people understand firefighters as basically helping them when they're in bad trouble. Either there's a fire, or there's an emergency medical issue, or there's something that they need serious help, and you and the people you work with would be the people that respond to that.
Correct.
So you don't have this aspect of your job that's arresting or detaining or questioning or getting them in trouble with the law.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess it didn't, would you say that it does not surprise you? Because in your direct you said she wasn't as open with the police officer who arrived as she was with you.
Right, no, it doesn't surprise me, it happens all the time.
Right, because people talk to firefighters and they don't necessarily talk to police officers, right?
Correct.
But that also tells you that she recognized the difference between the person you were at the scene and the person the police officer was.
I believe so.
Okay. So one of the things you said a few times, you said, she had psychiatric issues or under the influence or maybe both.
Right.
And because in your training and experience, I'm just talking about as a firefighter, as San Antonio Fire, you know that intoxication can mimic signs of psychiatric illness.
Correct. Yeah.
And so somebody can be intoxicated and look like they're crazy, for the general term, but look like they have some sort of psychiatric illness, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Right,
and so, and if you don't know the person, I think you said you didn't have a baseline, which if you don't know the person, you can't tell, like, are you having a psychiatric issue, or are you intoxicated, or are you high on drugs or alcohol?
Correct.
Right, so, and that was the situation for you at the scene.
Yeah.
Because people can talk and say weird stuff like, I was pregnant, I might not have been, I was with Elvis, I own the building, all of those things. I cut the wires because someone was spying on me through them. People can say weird things like that based on them being intoxicated.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
Sure. I mean, but also they can be delusional, they can have schizophrenia, they can have some other major psychiatric disorder. You agree with that?
Right, yeah.
And, or they could have the major psychiatric disorder and be intoxicated.
Correct.
Right, and so, you know, with that, somebody in your position, you're used to responding to scenes and talking to people and getting those impressions from people when you go out, back when you did that, when you were out in the field doing that, right?
Right.
Okay, so you know, because you would agree that you guys work very closely with police officers.
We do, yeah.
Because a lot of times you have different roles, but y'all are going to the same scenes.
Correct.
So you know that for police officers, they also interact with the public and respond to scenes and talk to people and those kind of things.
Correct.
And for police officers, they're in the same position of, it could be psychiatric, it could be intoxication, or it could be both.
Right.
And police officers, the idea with that is that an intoxicated person, you know, because even though firefighters are normally seen as helpers, firefighters are targeted and first responders are targeted.
Right.
And you have been trained that you have to be careful too.
Right.
Sometimes people have set fires so that firefighters will go to the scene and they can kill them.
Yeah.
And that's a job hazard that you and the people that work with you, that's a job hazard that you have to deal with.
Right.
And so even in your situation, you not acting as a police officer, you have to gauge danger and risk with the people that you're talking to.
Correct.
And in this situation, you said if she escalated, it seemed like she would come back down and you distract her by talking about her dog or whatever.
Right.
And is that part of your training and your experience that when you're dealing with somebody who's escalating, you try to de-escalate?
Yeah, I just try to distract them from whatever's getting them worked up. Right.
And bring them back down to something else.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you did a good job with that. So after you recorded this video up there, after you recorded this video, I think you said it cut off. It kind of cut off where it cut off because you thought that she might notice that you were recording her.
I saw her look down at the camera.
And why did you not want her to see that?
It wasn't so much that. I had her already admitting, you know, what I wanted her to admit on the camera. And then when she looked down, I didn't want her to get upset about it, so I just kind of stopped it and put it in my pocket probably.
So it was kind of a natural end because you got what you wanted with your report.
Right.
Now, when the officers arrived, I don't know, I guess you might know or not, but it wasn't any of these three officers that arrived and spoke to you that are on trial here.
I can remember.
You couldn't even remember. And we'll see their body cams and we'll see who talked to you. But I think that when you talk to the prosecutor in a pretrial, you mentioned that there were things that you thought she might need to be ED'd or like emergency detention. Do you remember saying that?
No.
Do you remember talking to the officer and saying like, there might be a problem or she might need something else ever?
I don't remember, no.
Okay. But you know what emergency detention is?
I've heard of it, yeah. I mean, I know that's the police's job. We don't really have any say in it.
Oh, of course. Now, and I'm not saying you were making the decision.
No, I know.
I think you were talking to him about maybe there's something that needs to go on, but you don't remember talking about that.
I could have. Okay. I'm not denying if it's on the body cam. I just don't remember.
Sure. And I think it was. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because one of the things you knew is that that you did need to inform the officers that, hey, she's the one that cut the wires.
Right.
And and she told me that she did. And I think what happened was the officers were questioning her and she didn't want to tell them the truth. And you had to tell her like, hey, tell them what you told me.
Okay.
Do you remember doing that? Okay.
No.
That's fine. But it was like it took you kind of bringing that out in order to have her tell the officers that she had done that. Now, you agree that criminal mischief is a criminal offense?
Right, I just, yeah.
And, I mean, intentionally destroying wires, that's...
Right, I don't know criminal mischief, I just call it vandalism, but
Sure.
I don't know the difference.
Let's take vandalism. You agree vandalism is a crime?
Correct.
Are you aware now that since this, that it is actually a third-degree felony to cut the wires at all on an emergency box like that, a firebox?
I wasn't aware.
Okay. The, so you said that she, like you heard the officer say, hey, come back here with me, or walk with me, or come or whatever with me.
Yes.
To Miss Pettis. And then he was walking, she was walking. The next thing you know, one of your guys says, hey, she's running, or she took off.
Correct.
And you looked up and, you see officers chasing her, but then she's out and around the corner.
Right.
When she gets into her apartment, one of the things you said, or you said she got there, one of the things you said you wanted to do is you kind of ran around too because you wanted to make sure the officers were okay.
Correct.
Why?
Just I didn't know what, I didn't know if they caught her, if she was fighting.
But let me ask you this. It looks like, maybe you can remember, but this is a woman who's 5'1", 150 pounds. You ran around because you believe that a woman that's that size could potentially hurt or damage an officer?
She can. I mean, I just, we're there, we just want to help each other out, you know what I mean?
I mean, could a woman 5'1" like that, could she damage you if you came out?
If she had a weapon, I mean, or if I had a gun, if she got a hold of it, I guess. I mean, I don't.
Sure. And the thing I want to point out is that for people in your profession, for people in police officers' profession, for first responders, you guys are trained that anybody can be dangerous to you.
Right.
And it does not matter the size of the person, right?
Right.
Because if you ignored potential danger because of the size of a person, that's a good way to get dead.
Right.
Right. Because in the suggestion that the size of the person means, it doesn't matter at all, or the gender of the person. Like you would be just as wary of females as you would of males.
Correct.
Because if they have a weapon that you haven't seen yet, and it gets produced, you're going to have to protect yourself.
Right.
And it could cause you not to go home that day.
Correct.
And one of the things for firefighters as well is you want to get home at the end of the day.
Obviously, yes.
Because it's a dangerous job. Because as far as I'm concerned, I do this. I have papers, I'm in court, I do trials, right? And me going home at the end of the day is, unless something happens, is a foregone conclusion.
I'm going to object to testifying. Where's the question?
His driving home is the most dangerous part of his day.
I can ask the question.
Okay, you can rephrase.
But for somebody where you are, who has to run into danger when everybody else runs away, it is that much more important to do the things you need to do to keep you safe to go home to your family. You would agree with that?
I would agree, yes.
I'll pass it over.
Can we ask for assistance to see if we can display?
Yes.
they're smart. All of those attorneys would, well, one of them was representing all three, but they would have hired a specialist to sit there and just pay attention to the jury. I mean, I wrote in my notes, defense focused on the safety of the first responders and the impact of the fire alarm system being down at the apartment complex. I mean, that's pretty much what I get from this. It is vitally important for the fire system to be working. It puts everybody at a greater risk. And if you've got anybody who loves to start and play with fire, who knows that the system is down, that's the opportune time if someone wants to play with fire and harm somebody to do it. I want to see more video of her.
Have the switches been switched for doing it slack?
Are you okay if you guys wanted to take? So we're gonna get a break. I'm about to give you a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. Give us just a few minutes. All right, jury.
So it looks like they actually ended up ending for the day. So that is the end of the first day. I've got 14 half pages of notes or of these. A lot of notes that I took. This, I think, is going to be the most interesting of all trials. I think that this particular trial is going to be long only because, not that it's going to be a difficult trial per se, I just think it's going to be long because we have 3 defendants being tried at one time. I understand it saves the court a ton of money. They don't need 3 jurors, 3 days, 3 different processes and all that good stuff. That said, see if that fits in there. It does. We really haven't gotten very far into this. I was not happy with the way and what they were trying to get out of the first witness. The first witness was a woman who was the record keeper for the sheriff's department or for the county emergency services department. And they were asking questions that she had no business answering. There were questions that were pertaining to and should have been applied to what they call as a dispatcher, a firefighter or police EMS dispatcher would have been the appropriate person to ask the questions to. Yes, please support the channel by blessing us with super chats and super stickers, but importantly, also please become a member. We love our members. Now, normally I'm not on Saturday nights, but I wanted to get ahead on this trial because it started on Friday. We had multiple trials going on Friday. I did put a short out. Y'all go and click love on that short. And then we are going to go live tomorrow night with is it the Ellis? Yes, it's the Ellis trial. So, okay, guys, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much for hanging with me tonight. We appreciate and love all of you, my mods. Nightbot, you're a pain in my butt, but I need you. June, you're simply the best. Everybody, y'all have a fabulous evening. Come join me again tomorrow night. Also, Monday, that is right, is the sentencing of the Donna Adelson, Granny Gotti, or Dramadama. Dramadonna is getting sentenced, and it will be fireworks, I'm sure. So until Sunday night, I will see you. Yes, Drama Lama Ding Dong. Drama Lama Ding Dong. I know my mod's working. She did it, not me. So you guys have a fabulous evening. We will chat at you tomorrow. Go enjoy your family. See you then. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. I hope you have an awesome day. Till next time.